Crash is a YouTube producer. And Heather Wells is in our news center with all eyes on New York in the sky with a Montreal tie-in. So what has happened, Heather?
Well, good morning. 2 Air Canada pilots are dead after a runway crash at New York's LaGuardia Airport. 9 people are in hospital, some with serious injuries. And as this investigation gets underway, we do know that as the plane was landing, as the Air Canada flight from Montreal, as you say, was coming into LaGuardia, a fire truck was also in its line, and that's where the crash occurred. We are going to have more on this developing story coming up on World Report at 6. We'll also have the latest for you coming up at 6:30. As well, Manitoba farmers are encouraged by early forecasts for spring and summer precipitation. This after last summer saw severe drought and more than 10 municipalities declaring states of agricultural disaster. We'll have the latest on what to expect in our next local news coming up at 6:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
Also, we have a serious interview. It's a feature interview, though, that she'd like people to think of as a positive interview. It's with a woman whose life plan is to die a month from today on her birthday. She will access MAID. She hopes that sharing her story will help others if they too are considering medical assistance in dying to go out on their own terms and to not be afraid. So stay tuned. We're going to hear her story a little bit later in the show. Also, we're going to hear from CFL Hall of Famer Milt Stiegel about why he will be also in Winnipeg today to support youth mental health. He'll talk a little bit about his own mental health as well, being 25 years old when he first came here to play football in Winnipeg. Right now, though, let's get the latest on what happened in that crash on World Report at 6.
30 years ago, Thompson Highway wrote a musical that was never professionally produced, but a student named Patricia Cano performed it at university. 25 years later, they're still making music together, and they'll tell you how that show, Rose, is finally getting its first professional production.
Changed my life because it brought Thompson into it. It means everything.
Q with Tom Power, this morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on CBC Listen, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm Martina Fitzgerald.
Sadly, the 2 pilots are confirmed deceased, and notifications are being made by Air Canada's care team at this time.
2 Air Canada pilots are dead, killed in a collision at New York's LaGuardia Airport. Dozens of other people are injured. 9 remain in hospital.
Stop. Stop, truck 1. Stop. Stop, truck 1. Stop.
That is air traffic control trying to get a fire truck to stop just before it collided with the plane. The ground vehicle was responding to another incident when it crossed the runway. The Air Canada Jazz flight from Montreal had just landed late last night and was moving at about 40 kilometers an hour when it was struck. Here's more from air traffic control after the collision.
That wasn't good to watch.
Yeah, I know I was here. I tried to reach out to my stuff, and we were dealing with an emergency earlier, and I messed up.
No, man, you did the best you could.
Images from the scene show the aircraft tilted back on its tail. The nose appears to be sheared off. These people were on the flight.
I mean, it was pretty shocking. I didn't know what to expect. We were honestly sleeping and then landing, and then all of a sudden, boom, woke up in shock. Just didn't know what to do.
One of our friends was several rows back from us, and we walked past him on the way out because he was trying to find his glasses, and his nose was totally broken, bleeding. A lot of people smacked their head against the seat in front of them.
72 passengers and 4 crew members were on board the Air Canada flight. LaGuardia Airport is closed, with investigators working to determine the cause of the collision. Canada's Transport Minister, Stephen McKinnon, says Canada is working closely with U.S. authorities. This incident is heightening concerns about air travel safety in the U.S. and the pressure being put on air traffic controllers. The CBC's Willie Lowry joins me from Washington. Willie, air traffic controllers are not included in the current U.S. government shutdown, but they were affected by the shutdown this past October. Remind us what happened.
Last fall's government shutdown really exposed a stress point in the transportation industry here in the U.S. The country is short more than 3,000 air traffic controllers and has struggled to hire and train new ones as many age out. And just last month, the U.S. Transportation Department Office of Inspector General opened a probe into what it calls the high failure rates among air traffic controller trainees. Many of those who are on the job are working mandatory overtime and often 6 days a week. The FAA has quite onerous requirements. First-time applicants must be under 31 years of age and are required to go to training at the Federal Aviation Administration's Academy in Oklahoma City, and then required to do another 2 to 3 years of on-the-job training. According to the FAA, only 10% of applicants meet all the requirements necessary. The mandatory age of retirement is 56, though because of the shortage, that number has been pushed to 61 in some cases. The FAA has been trying to boost the number of controllers, but it's a long process.
The CBC's Willie Lowry in Washington. Thank you, Willie.
My pleasure.
We're now just hours away from a deadline set by U.S. President Donald Trump. He has told Iran to fully open the Strait of Hormuz or its power plants will be obliterated. But Iran has issued its own threat. It says if Washington moves on its power plants, the essential shipping route will be shut down completely. The CBC's Sasha Petrusik joins me from Jerusalem. Sasha, Trump's deadline is quickly approaching. What are we expecting?
That's right, Martina. There's a lot of threats that are being thrown back and forth between the United States and Iran. This morning, we're also seeing more airstrikes. Israel put out a warning today saying that it would be hitting different sites across Iran without giving a lot of details. And indeed, after that, we heard reports of explosions in Tehran with reports of infrastructure being hit. Again, not a lot of details, but it's exactly that kind of infrastructure that U.S. President Donald Trump is actually planning to hit. That's what he is saying. Power plants in particular in Iran. If Iran does not completely open, in his words, the Strait of Hormuz, that of course is the critical waterway where so much of the world's oil and liquid natural gas flows. Iran, in reply, has been saying that if that happens, they will be releasing more mines, not only around the Strait of Hormuz, but throughout the Persian Gulf, which of course could be even more threatening for shipping in that area. They're also threatening to hit infrastructure in surrounding countries, especially those that are hosting American forces and other American companies.
And what's the effect of all of this on oil prices, Sasha?
Oil prices have been going up. They've gone up as high as $113 a barrel today. So a lot of nervousness leading up to this deadline. And it's, of course, all connected to the supply of energy, which has been choked off and has been reduced already.
The CBC's Sasha Petrusik in Jerusalem. Thank you, Sasha.
My pleasure, Martina.
Every year, thousands of people choose to give up their U.S. citizenship. Tax lawyers who help American Canadians renounce their citizenship say they're seeing increased interest. As Julie Ireton reports, opposition to President Trump is just one factor.
Every week, protesters gather outside the U.S. Embassy in Ottawa. They rally against U.S. President Donald Trump and his administration's actions.
It's a fascist imperialist regime.
Ella Hyder waves a homemade sign. She's actually American, but Canada is home, and she's now considering renouncing her U.S. citizenship.
I align more with Canadian values. I'd be fine with not having an American citizenship.
We have steadily seen increases of individuals giving up their U.S. citizenship each year.
Alex Marino is an American tax lawyer in Calgary. Canadians pay his firm $10,000 to $15,000 to help them renounce. He says Trump is definitely a factor, but so are American taxes. The U.S. and Eritrea are the only countries in the world that tax based on citizenship rather than residency. But there are long waiting lists to renounce at the U.S. Embassy or consulates in Canada.
We help and will send anywhere from about 30 to 50 Canadians a month abroad for a quicker interview to renounce. If you're interested in a renunciation vacation, we can get it done in 2 to 3 months.
Jackie Lyons grew up on Long Island. She gave up her U.S. passport in 2023.
It was the right decision, and my family, all in the U.S., they supported me.
For Ella Hyder, giving up the right to vote in U.S. elections is still holding her back.
Yeah, I have to weigh all that.
Julie Ireton, CBC News, Ottawa.
The Supreme Court of Canada is set to begin 4 days of hearings on Quebec's secularism law. The province has invoked the notwithstanding clause to protect Bill 21. That is the 2019 law banning some public sector workers from wearing religious symbols at work. Quebec argues it is necessary to maintain the province's secular neutrality. Critics argue it violates freedom of religion and equality rights. Canada is still considering a social media ban for children and young teens. Parents and educators say more needs to be done to protect young people from online harm, and many are looking to Australia. 3 months ago, it banned anyone under age 16 from accessing social media. The CBC's Deanna Sumanak-Johnson looked into how that's working out.
It really didn't do anything. The social media ban was a bit of a non-event for our family.
Kate Gotham is a Sydney mom of 3 boys who says what kids consume online should be the parents' responsibility, not the government's.
We instead have policed our kids, parented our kids online always.
Her 2 eldest boys had no trouble tricking the age verification on social media platforms and staying online. While some Aussies hold that view, University of Sydney researcher Timothy Koski says it doesn't mean the ban is failing.
If you look at the way the policy was crafted, it's not saying, I want to make sure that that teen is off social media. It's saying, I want to make sure that the social media platforms are held accountable for when teens are able to get on it.
He says whether the ban is really working or not will be seen in longer term, looking at metrics like teen eating disorder rates or concentration in the classroom. And watching that Aussie experiment, Canadians who say we need some sort of restrictions here, including Vancouver mom and founder of Parent Network Unplugged Canada, Jenny Perez.
So we have waited enough. This shouldn't be debatable anymore.
When asked, Prime Minister Mark Carney said that a possible age restriction on social media use in Canada merits a parliamentary debate. But internationally, the momentum is growing. Indonesia's under-16 restrictions are kicking in this week, and France's are just waiting for Senate approval. Deanna Sumanak-Johnson, CBC News, Toronto.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm Martina Fitzgerald. This is CBC News.
Good morning, Manitoba, and hello, Winnipeg. I'm R.C. Marcusa. This is Information Radio. We're live in downtown Winnipeg on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and on YouTube. Thanks for being here. Monday morning. Already March 23rd. Wow. This hour on the program, we're going to hear more about the latest developments on the Iran war. Of course, the next 48 hours are critical, so we're going to walk you through exactly what experts are saying and watching for specifically. Also this hour on the show, gas prices. They have gone up significantly since the war started, and so we're going to talk more about where they're at this morning. That's coming up just before 7 o'clock. We also have a special feature coming out today on our social media platforms, so you'll want to be with CBC Manitoba all about the history of the price of gas here. In addition, this hour on the show to something completely different, we are going to meet a Winnipeg woman who worked around the clock caring for her own elderly parents, only to learn she had to care for herself as well after she was diagnosed with cancer. Her story is part of a special local documentary that was created by Sisler Crate students, and we're going to hear more about it in a moment. Right now, Heather Wells is in with other stories and headlines. Good morning, Heather.
Good morning. Well, with warmer weather ahead, a Winnipeg City Councillor is asking you to help out by clearing street drains to prevent flooding. Janice Luke says additional crews are working around the clock to remove snow and ice from sewers. But she says with so many sewers in this city, the help of residents is welcome. And Winnipeg Blue Bomber great Milt Stegall came to town yesterday to see a machine named in his honor. Earlier this winter, you may recall, Winnipeggers were asked to name pieces of snow clearing equipment for a city contest. Well, Milt Stegall was one of the winning entries, and Milt Stegall, yesterday on Milt Stegall Drive, where else, says it's pretty cool. We'll hear from him in our next local news at 6:30.
Marcy Marscupa didn't make it, but
Marcy
Milt
Marscupa, I love it.
Stegall, one of our associate producers
You
here.
should have entered that yourself.
It was entered. Apparently, one of our associate producers here, unbeknownst to any of us, put in as many names as she could of CBC folks where the names would work.
That's funny.
So I think there was one for Marjorie, too. Maybe it was Dalplows. I can't remember, but yeah. So or
Plowhouse, for
Plowhouse, yeah.
That's hilarious.
I know.
How did I not know this?
I don't know. You got to come to the show part of the room. Get out of the news department. See what we're talking about. All right. Thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
Well, Mel Stiegel is also in town today. He remained in town, actually, from yesterday. Heather was mentioning he got here yesterday for a different reason. He's here actually to help support Huddle Youth Mental Health Services. So there's a special event coming up. So we taped an interview with him. We caught some time with him. And so we'll have that on for you in the next hour of the show. Right now, let's go to Abby Adiyemi with our actual weather. Hi, Abby.
Hi, Marcy. We're looking at a mix of spring sunny conditions and winter flurries across the province today, while the south is going to be seeing some cloudy conditions rolling. We're waking up to clear skies. The north remains gripped by those really, really chilly conditions, and frostbite still a play up north. For Winnipeg and nearby regions, we're looking at clear skies to start the day. This will be followed by increasing cloudiness with a good chance of showers or flurries sometime in the afternoon. Currently -5 at the Forks, and we're tracking -6 around the airports area. Clear conditions. Cloudy conditions will roll in later in these areas of the city, and we'll see morning temperatures hover between -5 and -7 before we reach a high of +3 today. Now, across the south, the Pembina Valley, the Westman, the Parkland, the Interlake regions, we're looking at temperatures hover between -8 and -12 at this time. Also expecting a mix of sun and clouds. Highs for most of the regions around 3 degrees. But up north, we're seeing temperatures around -11 at the Par, and of course a -35 towards Churchill this morning, with wind chill still in the -40s.
All right. Thanks, Abby.
You're welcome.
Well, Riley Leitchuk, our weather specialist, warned us. Commute rolling.
Yeah, so far pretty quiet. Haven't heard of any major issues out there. I can tell you those sidewalks there. Well, it's spring on the roads, winter on the sidewalks. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, I almost bit it this morning.
Yeah. It's either weirdly slushy and slippery. It's just no fun. I actually slipped over on the weekend. It was no fun. But if you do see something else going on, you want to give me a call, you can let me know. If you're walking, bike, and driving, I'd love to hear from you. If there's any new potholes, I'm sure there's a few that popped up over the weekend. You can give me a call, 204-788-3093.
Well, as I mentioned up first today, we have the latest in our series of stories produced by local filmmaking students in the CREATE program over at Sisler High School in collaboration with CBC Manitoba. So this week we're about to meet Euphrasia Juan is a Winnipeg woman who, like a lot of folks, became the primary caregiver for her elderly parents until one day she too needed care. She was diagnosed with cancer. So what do you do when the caregiver needs caring? Sisler CREATE student filmmaker Chantel Rodriguez explored that theme along with CREATE students Wida Marley and Caleb Saladaga. Here now is their story.
It's not only for myself, but I need to fight because of them. It was June of 2022 when it's really announced that I have that cancer. And at the same time, I'm still caring for both my sick parents, and it's really a hard situation to carry. And I cannot be a patient caring full-time for a sick parents at the same time. My parents, they're both 89 years old, and they're both sick. Sometimes they're forgetful, and it's really hard managing my own illness and taking care of them full time. That's why I need help from my family. I can't do it alone. It's hard for me.
You don't have to go through it alone. Sometimes people feel that even with supportive family and friends, that they can't quite put words to their experience. They may be protecting loved ones in their life and not want to talk about the experience of cancer. But if that is their situation, they can certainly reach out to trained professionals like us, psychosocial oncology clinicians, who can help them to ease some of that distress and burden, emotional and mental burden, by just being able to talk about it and name it and process it. So reach out, ask for support, because it's here and available to them.
Before I went for surgery, I had 26 cycles of chemotherapy and radiation. And after my surgery, I had another 9 cycles of chemotherapy. Graduation. Congratulations! Thank you. You know that God heals. So I submitted everything, my faith to God, that since my cancer didn't spread, I have a 100% survival rate. That's why I didn't lose hope. So now that I have time, make sure that I will do everything for them. I'm grateful, healed. So thank you, God. Thank you, Lord.
It's one of the documentaries made by the Sisler Create students in the program there. It's a post-secondary program, and CBC supports the young filmmakers with their work. Those are the voices of Euphrosina Juan, who's the caregiver for her elderly parents, and Cheryl Dizon Renante, who's a psychosocial oncology clinician. That story was produced by Create students Chantel Rodriguez, Wida Marley, and Caleb Saladaga, with support, as I mentioned, from CBC. If you want to see the videos, they are all on our website. Please check them out, cbc.ca/Manitoba.
CBC Music, live at Massey Hall, the most iconic music venue in Canada. An absolute milestone in the careers of musicians who stand on the historic stage. And you have a front row seat. All right. A new season of episodes now available. Bahamas, The Glorious Sons, The Sadies, Field Guide, Serena Ryder, O.C. Elliott, and Chantel Kreviazik. CBC Music, live at Massey Hall. Watch free on CBC Gem.
Well, I don't know about you, but this weekend I found myself just finding the sunniest window in my home. And I was lucky enough because there was a little sort of love seat in front of it. And I just sat there and I sat with the sun in my face. Now, I did that as much as I could through the winter to grab that vitamin D, but it just doesn't feel the same as that springtime sunshine. It was warm on my face and it was just lovely. And then I continued to read a book I've been reading, but it was just beautiful stuff. So Friday, officially, spring did arrive. We are going to be a little colder than usual this week in Manitoba, but here we are at -5. Our high today will be 3 degrees. We are going to get some increasing cloud as well. But with spring finally here, we thought we'd play a lovely track this Monday morning. This is from a Canadian singer-songwriter, Alison Russell, and she's set to perform at the Junos on Sunday. This is Springtime on 89.3.
So long farewell, adieu. So long farewell, adieu. To that tunnel I went through. To that tunnel I went through. And my reward, my recompense. My reward, my recompense. Springtime of my present tense. Springtime of my present tense. But I used to think that I was doomed to die young, to be consumed. Our lullabies were violent, those winters of my discontent. So long farewell, adieu. So long farewell, adieu. To that tunnel I went through. To that tunnel I went through. And my reward, my recompense. My reward, my recompense. Springtime of my present tense. Springtime of my present tense. Hey. Hey.
Alison Russell breaking out the French. I love when the drums come in there. Totally changes the texture of the song. Feels like springtime, you know? It eases in, and then you're like, yeah, let's celebrate. Because you know what comes next? Summertime. She's performing at the Junos if you want to check her out on Sunday on CBC. This tune is called Springtime. Well, it's 6:24 exactly. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Thanks for joining us. And next on the show, let's turn our attention back to international news and politics. Now in its fourth week, no end in sight to the war started by the U.S. and Israel against Iran. The U.S. sending more warships and Marines to the region. Iran blocking the Strait of Hormuz. And Paul Waldman's with us to catch us up. He's with a columnist for MS Now. I actually spoke with him at 6.
Good morning.
So what is the recap of all of these major developments in the war from the weekend, Paul?
Well, President Trump has now set a deadline of tonight that if Iran does not open the Strait of Hormuz, then he is going to target Iranian power infrastructure, which is a direct attack on civilians. And so that is a real escalation. Now, Iran says that if that happens, they are going to themselves target energy infrastructure around the region, desalination plants, really trying to increase the cost to the U.S.'s allies in the Gulf and drive a wedge between the U.S. and those allies. That seems to be their strategy. Meanwhile, Iranian missiles got through Israeli air defenses and landed and blew up near the city of Dimona, which is a very important part of Israel's defense. That's where they have their main nuclear research facility. That made people very concerned in Israel, and it shows that Iran still has the capacity to get through those defenses and impose costs on Israel. And so we're at a time when it really does kind of feel like things are about to escalate. And meanwhile, one other piece of this, Israel has intensified its attacks on South Lebanon, which it has been targeting since the war began, going after Hezbollah there. They may even be preparing a ground invasion. So this really does feel like kind of a moment when things could really begin to spin upward.
Iran is also threatening to attack tourist areas globally as well. What might that mean?
Well, you know, their whole strategy has been to impose costs on the rest of the world, and it's been pretty successful so far. There is an oil crisis, a natural gas crisis. Even fertilizer has increased in price dramatically, which affects farmers everywhere. And, they knew they could not go sort of toe-to-toe with the U.S. military or even the Israeli military, but they have these levers that they can press, which they have done pretty successfully. And so now they're threatening that, they could even directly threaten the lives of ordinary people around the world at various places. Now, will they follow up on that? Who knows? It could be just an idle threat. But it shows that they, their strategy is to make everyone around the world feel the pain of this and therefore, put pressure on the U.S. government to pull back. And so far, it has not been unsuccessful.
I want to ask about the 2,500 U.S. Marines that are on the way there already to the region, 3 more warships as well. What are experts saying about the ramping up of activity, about the possibility of that number of boots on the ground?
Well, the question is, are they going to be deployed to take control of Karg Island, which is where Iran has a lot of its oil production facilities and oil distribution facilities and is kind of a choke point where they can launch attacks? That would be a major escalation from the U.S. perspective because Trump always wanted to avoid the kind of quagmire that you get when you actually have to put boots on the ground. That was his idea, that he didn't want to repeat the mistakes of Iraq and Afghanistan, and he thought that he could just wage this war from the air without putting Americans at risk and be successful in that way. And it turns out that it really hasn't been successful. Just this morning, I think the head of U.S. Central Command said that they're achieving all their military objectives, which is true in a narrow sense, but not true in the broader sense. It's basically the tactics are working, but the strategy is not.
So let me ask you about...
if they put Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, you go ahead.
I was going to say, if you start putting boots on the ground, that makes it a very different war.
Yes.
Now it means that Americans are going to be shot at and maybe killed.
I want to ask you about Iran's capabilities, which, obviously they've attacked the energy sites in the Gulf states. They are saying, though, now they have the capabilities still to build more missiles. What's the reaction in the region to that?
Yeah, everyone is very unhappy. Obviously, the U.S. allies like Oman and Qatar and the UAE, they're paying part of the cost for this war too. And, they may have not been happy with Iran before, but now they're really feeling it and getting attacked directly. And so we don't know what kind of pressure they're putting on the U.S. behind the scenes. But one would imagine that they are trying to convince the Americans to get this settled in some way as quickly as possible. But all of that comes down to the decisions made by Donald Trump. And, as we know, it can be hard to predict from day to day which way he's going to lean and what he's going to do.
Mm-hmm. Just last, Canada and some NATO allies issued a vague statement last week about potentially helping to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. What more do we know about that this morning?
Yeah, the important word there is vague. So they have been issuing statements. The G7 foreign ministers issued a statement. And basically what they all say is that we're very concerned. We want the strait to be reopened. And we support the basic goals of the American war in making sure that Iran doesn't have nuclear weapons and stopping their support for proxies like Hamas and Hezbollah. But they do not say that countries like Canada and Great Britain and France are going to deploy their own militaries to make this happen. They do not want to get sucked into a shooting war. And so these countries will express some rhetorical support for the U.S., but they're not going to go as far as getting themselves involved.
All right, Paul, thanks for this.
My pleasure. Thanks a lot.
Paul Waldman is a columnist for MS Now. He was in Washington, D.C. Right now it's time to get caught up on our CBC News from Manitoba.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 6:30 it is -5 right now. Winnipeg's about to get cloudy, and we could get a little damp as well. There's a 60% chance of showers or flurries this afternoon, getting windy with a high today of 3. And we are following breaking news from New York. 2 Air Canada pilots are dead after their plane collided with a fire truck last night while landing at LaGuardia Airport. Catherine Garcia is executive director of the Port Authority, which runs the airport.
Initial numbers indicate that 41 passengers and crew were transported to the hospital, as well as the ARF officers. At this time, we understand that 32 have been released, but there are also serious injuries. Sadly, the 2 pilots are confirmed deceased.
Now, all of this happened around 11:40 last night, local time in New York. Audio from air traffic control captures the moment of the crash.
Stop, truck 1. Stop. Stop, truck 1. Stop.
LaGuardia Airport is now closed until 2 this afternoon, with investigators working to determine the cause of the crash. Canada's Transport Minister Steve McKinnon says Canada is working closely with U.S. authorities, and we will have the latest on this story as it develops throughout the day right here on CBC. Here at home, a Winnipegger took matters into his own hands to clear a flood in Bridgewater Forest over the weekend. Gurachish Singh spent days dealing with a growing puddle in his back lane. The main sewer behind his Bridgewater house had clogged. After failing to clear it, he called 311 and was put on a waiting list. The city told him it could be more than a week before they could resolve the issue, and Singh says that timeline is unacceptable.
The smell getting into their houses soon, and the water will come to the house soon. So rather than waiting till 30th March, I let's do it and let's get rid of it. Let's get back to our business. And that's what we did.
Singh cleared the drain himself on Saturday. The city says crews are working to unclog sewers, but they are focused on catch basins where there's a risk to of flooding to properties. They do ask homeowners and other Winnipeggers to clear sewers that are clogged, and also to call 311. Manitoba farmers are encouraged by early forecasts for spring and summer precipitation. Steady snowfall combined with cold temperatures means soils should be nice and wet by the time seeding rolls around. Trevor Hadwin, a climatologist at Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada, says things are looking up for regions of Manitoba hit hard in the past.
In Manitoba, we've seen some really good moisture through the areas that were dry. So the Parkland region and the Interlake region of Manitoba have seen some really good winter snowfall.
Last summer, severe drought saw more than 10 rural municipalities declare states of agricultural disaster. Former Blue Bomber Milt Stegall says Winnipeg has found ways to honor him for decades, but a snowplow named after him wasn't on the list. Earlier this year, the city launched a contest for people to pick names of 12 snow-clearing heavy machines. One of the winners was Milt Stegall, named after the retired bomber grade. Stegall hopped onto the plow with his name on yesterday.
Little things like this mean so much. It just lets me know how much love I have in this city and how grateful I am for it. You know, I don't take anything for granted regardless of what it is because this is a special place for me.
Milt Stegall was a name entry by Winnipegger Adam Croker. Well, professional women's hockey played Winnipeg for the very first time this weekend. The Professional Women's Hockey League Takeover Tour last night on TSN. More than 15,000 fans packed the sold-out Canada Life Centre for last night's game between the Ottawa Charge and Montreal Victoire. Jen Sagan brought a sign to the game reading, "The PWHL needs to put a team in Winnipeg ASAP."
Women's sports has come a pretty long way, and it's awesome. It's awesome to get community together. It's awesome that there are other role models or types of role models in the world for young people and for girl people. And so, yeah, just very excited.
The PWHL didn't make an announcement about expanding to Winnipeg while it was here, but the league has signaled it plans to add at least 2 to 4 teams next season. Well, one weekend, 2 shootouts.
He'll touch and bring it with a bit of pace. Gabe Velarde creeping in, scores! Velarde scores in the shootout, and the Jets get the extra point.
Gabe Velarde on TSN with the game winner against the New York Rangers yesterday. Now, on Saturday, a shootout did not end in Winnipeg's favor. Jets coach Scott Arniel says his team is working to gain ground in the hunt for that wild card playoff spot.
Try to find a way to just pick away at the teams that are sitting above us, and but we have to take care of our own business. And I've said it can't just be one. We got to find ways to get 2 points. I'm real proud of the guys tonight that we pulled that one off.
And the Jets return home now to host the Las Vegas Golden Knights tomorrow night. You can find more Manitoba news at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Okay, thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
And we had developing news while Heather was talking here, so we're going to get some response right away in our business report. According to Reuters wire service, Donald Trump, the U.S. president, has postponed military strikes on Iranian power plants now for 5 days. He said this earlier. This is within the last half hour here. And so we're going to hear more about that story coming up, and then we also will hear about, of course, what's happening with the world's oil markets. From Crystaline, our business report in a moment. Right now, let's go to Abby and hear more about our weather, Abby.
Yes, Marcy, we started with some clear skies, but down south we will see some more cloudy conditions roll in, and tracking conditions in the northern part of the province. We're still seeing lingering snow and really chilly conditions with frost bites in minutes and exposed skin in some areas. For Winnipeg and nearby areas in the Red River Valley region, we started clear. Some clouds will roll in. We do have a good chance of showers or flurries this afternoon. We're currently around -5 at the Forks and -6 at the airport. We should see morning temperatures hover between these temperatures before we hit our morning high of +3. Similar conditions we're seeing across the south, the Pembina Valley region and the Westman region. From Morden towards Brandon and nearby, we're seeing temperatures hover between -4 and -9. Clear skies to start, but there's a good chance of showers in the afternoon. Highs would be around 6 and 7 degrees. While for the Parkland and Interlake region, Dauphin and the Gimli area, we're looking at -5s to -11s at this time. Also, morning flurries in the forecast. Highs will be around 2 degrees. Up north, temperatures hovering around -8 for the Par Flin Flon. We're tracking -34 around Tudula Lake this morning with significant frost bites in play. While for Thompson, Lynn Lake and Gillam, we're seeing mostly cloudy skies and light snow falling there for now. Temperatures around -21. We'll see highs between -15 and -19. Tudula Lake -34. Churchill -31 with ice crest crystals and dangerous wind chills of minus 47. But Winnipeg, we are currently around minus 5, warming up to plus 3.
All right. Thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Hopefully we'll see some kind of sun today. It doesn't sound very promising in Winnipeg anyway. All right, let's get to the morning commute. If you're an active commuter, it's tricky out there, right?
Yeah, those sidewalks are real slippery, and if it's not slippery, they're slushy. So just heads up there. I ran on the road.
Booter!
Yeah, 100%. So it was Booter City, and then I ran on the road pretty much the whole way here, actually. So just heads up there. But otherwise, haven't heard of any major issues on the road. Did get a call from Onkar on the commuter line. He said that there is a big pothole on De La Senori, which is a street in Island Lakes area. It kind of runs parallel to 59. Kind of takes you to Abinojimikana. If you do see anything else going on, you can give me a call on the CBC commuter line. If you see any other potholes, be like Onkar. You can give me a call. That number, 204-788-3093.
All right, thanks, Corey.
Thank you.
Just want to mention on Air Canada Flight 8646 from Montreal to LaGuardia, which obviously we're following this morning after the incident upon landing resulted in the death of two of the pilots. There is a number now, if you believe that you had loved ones on that flight, since it did originate in Montreal, just to check on people, 1-800-961-7099 for information, 1-800-961-7099. All right, let's turn our attention to business news now. Crystalie Ramlakan is here with our report. Good morning, Crystalie.
Hey, good morning, Marcy.
So oil prices once again up over the weekend, now down, and this ever-changing story. I just mentioned the latest, but tell us the latest from your business and oil markets point of view here.
Yes, so the price of oil is going down right now after U.S. President Donald Trump has now postponed U.S. strikes against Iran energy infrastructure for 5 days. So in a Truth Social post, Trump has written the United States and Iran have had over the past 2 days very good and productive conversations regarding a complete and total resolution of our hostilities in the Middle East. So the post comes after Trump gave Iran 48 hours to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, but it's still not clear when the key shipping route will actually reopen. So Brent crude, the global benchmark, climbed to about $114 a barrel over the weekend, but right now it's sitting around $104. But still, Goldman Sachs has said that these higher prices could last until next year. And, we have been seeing still elevated prices have been pushing prices up at the pump. And experts say gas prices will actually be slow to recover even after the war ends because it will take time for markets to mend globally.
Let's go to another story. A jury has ruled now that Elon Musk misled investors before he took over Twitter in 2022. So we have to go back a bit. What are the details?
Well, a U.S. jury has found Musk liable for claims he defrauded Twitter shareholders by trying to drive down the social media company's stock price so he could renegotiate or even back out of his $44 billion takeover in 2022. So Musk first agreed to buy Twitter, now known as X, in April of 2022, but then spent months fighting to get out of the purchase before ultimately completing the acquisition. So Musk, the world's richest person, was accused of falsely claiming on social media that Twitter underreported how many fake and spam accounts known as bots were on the platform. And damages have yet to be calculated, but a lawyer for the shareholders estimates they could total about $2.5 billion US. So the lawyer says if you're able to move markets with your tweets, you're responsible for the harm you cause investors. So the lawsuit covers investors who say they sold their Twitter shares at prices Musk artificially depressed. But jurors said the shareholders did not prove a claim that Musk engaged in a scheme to defraud them. So Musk's lawyers call the verdict a bump in the road and say they look forward to vindication on appeal. And Musk has often chosen to battle shareholders in court rather than settle. So this includes a 2023 trial over whether he defrauded Tesla shareholders who claimed to suffer losses after he falsely claimed in 2018 to have funding secured to take the electric car company private, and litigation over his $139 billion Tesla pay package. But you know what, Marcy? Musk actually won both of those cases.
And finally, I know this was causing a lot of discussion, as you can imagine, in our radio newsroom on Friday. But CBS News is shuttering its radio division. What do we know about why?
Yes, so executives of the company say the cuts are a difficult but necessary reallocation of newsroom resources. They say a shift in radio station programming strategies coupled with challenging economic realities have made it impossible to continue as a service. So about 6% of the workforce will be laid off. The news division has about 1,100 employees, so dozens will be departing as a result of these cutbacks. And it is the second round of layoffs at CBS News since David Ellison took control of Paramount last summer. So CBS is owned by Paramount Skydance. And yeah, this represents the end of an era. CBS News Radio has a 99-year history, delivering up-to-the-minute headlines over the airwaves. And the radio unit will go off the air on May 22nd, which means its 700 affiliated stations have just 2 months to come up with a replacement. So the radio unit closure and the wider layoffs come at a moment of intense change for CBS News, with more in store in the coming months. Paramount is awaiting regulatory approval for its deal to buy Warner Brothers Discovery, including CNN, which, could lead to a future combination of CNN and CBS News.
What an ever-changing media landscape we have right now. So we'll see where it all goes. Thanks very much, Crystalie.
Okay, thanks, Marcy.
Crystalie Ramlicam with our business news on CBC Radio. 6:45 a.m. is the time right now. It's so interesting having been in radio now for 25 years. I remember starting college and they said, this will be the death of radio. And then it shifted and said, no, radio is going to be on the rise. And then this is going to happen with digital. And now, of course, everything's online, including audio, video. And it's always changing. 6:45, as I mentioned. Monday morning, March 23rd. Thanks for being here. -5 in Winnipeg. Skies are clear. -8 over in Brandon. Skies clear there as well right now. And mostly cloudy and -22 in Thompson. So why am I saying right now? Well, increasing cloud for Winnipeg at least. So 60% chance of flurries or rain, high 3. In Brandon, you'll actually stay nice. Mostly sunny, that is, until later this morning. I warned you. And a chance of flurries or rain showers for you as well. Your high's also 3 degrees. And then in Thompson today, increasing cloud, periods of snow this morning. That should end this afternoon, but not before you get about 2 to 4 centimeters. And it's going to be a little windy, winds northeast 20 to 40. Your high today in Thompson is going to be right around -15 degrees. Well, next in the show, a touch of music from Winnipeg musician Tyler Del Pino and his his backing band, the Brasstonauts. I think I said that right, the Brasstonauts. You get it. They're sure to get your toes tapping this Monday morning. This is called Thank You for Loving Me.
We've had a good run, and we ain't done yet. I feel like we both won when we placed our bets. Now whoever thought one drink could turn into the next few years of life. In a Camry, riding beside me, chasing those highway lines. Never had much use for praying, knowing most prayers go unheard. Didn't thank the gods for sending me an angel down to earth. 7 hearts like mine ain't easy, but you back the way it beats every day. I'm amazed I get to love you, so thank you for loving me. First time in Chicago, we heard shots that shook the sky. I glued my hand to yours, held on tight, thinking this is how we're gonna die. We drove up to Minnesota and slept in that haunted house. I knew I loved you right then and there, even though we were both busy freaking out. Never had much use for praying, knowing most prayers go unheard. Didn't thank the gods for sending me an angel down to earth. 7 hearts like mine ain't easy, but you got the way it beats every day. I'm amazed I get to love you, so thank you for loving me. We're watching the time
Del Pino, and thank you for loving me on CBC 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and on YouTube. Super fun times. A lot of local artists getting ready for their summer shows and those festival circuit and seasons, right? Artists locally and those that'll be coming here to perform. So obviously the Folk Fest earlier in March putting out its full slate of performers. You can check that out online. The Burt Block Party is going to be back in downtown Winnipeg. I know I got my tickets for 5440 in Collective Soul. I'm an older gal. Back in the day, man. Remember them at Sunfest. So I'll be checking them out on one of the nights. But bands announced for that. Colin James is also going to be here for the block party. And then, of course, a number of other concerts as well. So there's some buzz about AC/DC if you're of that vintage. And then some of the festivals now talking about their lineups for later in the summertime. So check it all out as people get geared up. And spring break coming up, of course. Speaking of breaks, things to do next week.
Local news is in decline across Canada, and this is bad news for all of us. With less local news, noise, rumors, and misinformation fill the void, and it gets harder to separate truth from fiction. That's why CBC News is putting more journalists in more places across Canada, reporting on the ground from where you live, telling the stories that matter to all of us. Because local news is big news. Choose news, not noise. CBC News.
Well, if you're just waking up this morning, it is 10 to 7, and you'll be hearing more about this on World Report. But there has been an incident with a plane from Montreal to LaGuardia in New York, where on the tarmac, the front nose of the plane did dip down. There was a crash. The pilots have died. There are 41 passengers and crew that were taken to hospital. 32 have been released. This is Air Canada Flight 8646. We'll hear more coming up about what we know so far. If you want information, because this is a flight originating in Canada, you can call 1-800-961-7099. Again, it was coming from Montreal. We'll have more at 7 o'clock. Well, speaking of developing news this morning, President Donald Trump said that the U.S. has now had a quote, good and productive conversation with Iran. He's now ordering the military to postpone any strikes against Iranian power plants and energy infrastructure for 5 days. So that is a development in the story. Meantime, though, the war is entering its fourth week and gas prices hit a record high since the summer of 2024. The cost of a barrel of Brent crude topped $119 US last Thursday. As you just heard on our business report, it's dropping now upon this news of the delay from Donald Trump or the postponement of possible strikes. But we want to check in with the Canadian Federation of Independent Business. They want Canada to think about the smaller players in the market, braving on these uncertain times. Corinne Pullman is Executive Vice President of Advocacy with CFIB. Good morning.
Good morning.
So how much does the cost of gas impact small businesses?
It can be quite significant. Obviously, it changes by sector, but ultimately, at the end of the day, most sectors will be affected. Some, like trucking, more immediately, and then others, like manufacturing, a little bit later, and certainly retail as well, as the gas prices start to permeate through the supply chain.
Do we know how much wiggle room businesses have to absorb unpredictable prices and costs?
Not a lot. It's been a tough number of years for many small businesses, so often their profit margins are quite thin. So they don't have a lot of wiggle room, but they certainly do whatever they can to help to sort of absorb those costs in the short term, hoping that this will sort of go away relatively quickly. But obviously, the longer it goes on, the harder that becomes. And inevitably, they'll have to make some tough decisions like increasing pricing, putting off expansion, maybe putting off hiring, all those types of things.
What does it mean for the future of small businesses in Canada, all of this volatility?
Well, it's a tough time. It's been basically 5 to 6 years of one crisis after another, seemingly starting with COVID to inflation to tariff war to what we're dealing with today. So it's been rough, and we've seen it in the statistics. We've seen the most recent statistics are telling us that for 5 quarters now in a row, there have been more small businesses closing than actually opening, which is very unusual for Canada. You may see that during a dramatic dip in the economy, but never from 5 quarters in a row. And that doesn't bode well for our overall economy because small businesses really are the foundation. They bring the stability to everything that we do in Canada. And so in terms of our economy, and so if they're starting to disappear, that is actually something, it's a bit of a wake-up call for government to pay attention.
You're calling, in fact, on Canada to develop a domestic energy supply. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's simply, again, to sort of deal with what we're dealing with today. It's sort of making sure that we're making the investments in our own country. We are an energy superpower. We have not made the investments we should have been for the last decade or so, but it's not too late to start. And so we need to start rebuilding some of what Canada has, whether it be oil and gas, whether it be hydroelectricity or other types of energy. We need to make sure that we can bring some stability to ourselves by, investing in this country.
What's it like for small businesses when obviously the question always arises, are you going to have to pass on the cost to the consumer? And there seems to be a threshold where, consumers will understand that and want to support their small businesses, and then it just gets too expensive for them. So how difficult is that when you talk to members about when they decide to do that?
Yeah, it's very difficult. I mean, obviously, we've seen consumer demand as one of the biggest issues affecting small businesses right now because everybody's struggling. And so they want to make sure that they don't increase prices too quickly. They want to keep their customers coming back. They're also competing with much larger companies who have economies of scale that they just don't have. So they don't want to drive people because the costs are lower somewhere else to those bigger companies. So they're doing everything they can to keep their prices reasonable and low. But, we certainly encourage Canadians when they can to certainly shop at small businesses.
I mentioned you're Executive Vice President of Advocacy with the Canadian Federation of Independent Business. What area of the country are you most concerned about?
Pretty much all areas of the country. It really depends on what's happening, right? Certainly the tariff war has had a big impact on the central parts of Canada, but certainly what's happening right now has impacts right across the country. We've seen these dips in fewer small businesses being created and more closing right across the country. It's really not unique to any one spot. So this is widespread, and we certainly want to encourage more Canadians to think about opening small businesses and those that are currently running small businesses for us to support them as much as we can.
Is there a different way to support them now if someone's thinking of opening a small business, given the fact that it's 2026. We're not a year past COVID. We're now 6 years beyond, and we have all of this change in the world. How much have you had to change how you support and advise upcoming business owners about what the reality is to do this?
Yeah, you can't sugarcoat it. It's not an easy thing to run a small business, especially in the first years. Once you can get it going and you've built your business to a certain point, it can become a bit easier to do so. But the taxation, the regulations in Canada can be a real challenge for many small companies. Then, of course, you put on top of that these sort of unpredictable events like the tariff war and now the conflict in the Middle East. You just have to be prepared for that and make sure that you're thinking about those things when you're setting up your business so that you can continue to provide the services to the customers that you have and continue to do what it is that you want to do. People start businesses because it's often a passion for them. And we want to encourage people to continue to, pursue those passions.
All right, Corinne, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Corinne Pullman is with us, Executive Vice President of Advocacy, as I mentioned, with CFIB, the Canadian Federation of Independent Business. Now, speaking of business, our budget's coming out tomorrow, our provincial budget. We're going to talk about this from a taxpayers and business point of view after 7 o'clock. So businesses, as Corinne was just saying, struggling with tariffs and uncertainty. Will anything in tomorrow's budget help? We're going to get some analysis. We have a panel coming up. Also, later, we will have Milt Stiegel on in Winnipeg today. Now, there's a story coming up about Milt in the news, but that's not what we're talking about. Milt actually joined me last week for a bit of a feature conversation. He supports an organization called Huddle, which supports young people with their mental health across Winnipeg, actually across Manitoba. And he's done that for years. So we just leaned into why he got involved and what he has to say and what he learned about his own mental health when he was a younger person here in Winnipeg. He came when he was 25. So we're going to hear more from Milt Stiegel. Also in the next hour of the program, search warrant documents revealing now more details about what Winnipeg police knew about an officer now in prison for corruption, years before he was arrested in 2024. At 7:50, we're going to hear what those documents have told us about disgraced former Constable Elston Bostock. So we're going to hear from Caitlin Gawryluk, who's been on this story throughout. Right now, 2 minutes to 7. Let's go to other stories with Heather Wells.
Good morning. Well, 2 Air Canada pilots are dead, killed in a collision at New York's LaGuardia Airport. Dozens of others are injured. 9 remain in hospital, some with serious injuries. All this happened at 11:30 last night, local time, as that Air Canada plane collided with a fire engine that was on the same runway, crossing the runway. The investigation is already getting underway. So we'll hear the latest on this developing story coming up on World Report at 7. Manitoba farmers are encouraged by early forecasts for spring and summer precipitation. All of this is great news after a severe drought last year saw more than 10 rural municipalities declare states of agricultural disaster. Your next local news coming up at 7:30.
Some more rain possible today, too. 60% chance. This afternoon, a high of 3 degrees in Winnipeg. Right now, it's clear and -5. We do have one issue in traffic to tell you about. Southbound St. Mary's in Dakota Dunkirk. There's a stall blocking the southbound median lane right at the stop line. Stay right to pass. So St. Mary's in Dakota Dunkirk, stay right to pass their stall blocking the southbound median lane. 788-3093 if you want to update Corey, especially on those sidewalks, which are all over the place with slush and ice, and then you get some pavement. Surprise. Stay with us. The latest on the airplane crash on World Report next.
On The Current.
You can even bet on games while they're still being played.
It is impossible to avoid every hockey, basketball, baseball broadcast littered with betting ads. What does that obsession with gambling and sports mean for the integrity of sport itself and for our experience as fans? Coming up on The Current.
The Current with Matt Galloway. This morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm Martina Fitzgerald.
Sadly, the 2 pilots are confirmed deceased, and notifications are being made by Air Canada's care team at this time.
2 Air Canada pilots are dead, killed when their plane collided with a fire truck at New York's LaGuardia Airport. At least 9 other people are in hospital. The CBC's Chris Reyes is at the airport for us this morning. Chris, take us through what happened.
I'll tell you where I am right now. I'm in the media staging area just outside LaGuardia Airport, right next to a highway, so I apologize for the noise. It's a very active scene here, a huge police presence with some of the surrounding roads blocked off. The first images that came in after this crash showed the Air Canada aircraft tilted upwards with severe damage to the nose of the plane. The collision happened on the runway just before midnight, involving an Air Canada Jazz flight coming in from Montreal with 72 passengers on board. The Port Authority Executive Director spoke to media. Catherine Garcia confirmed this collision happened as the aircraft was landing and it hit an emergency vehicle on the ground that was responding to another incident. She said that many of those taken to the hospital have been released, but those that remain in hospital have serious injuries. Now, she did not want to go into greater detail about exactly what happened, but have a listen to what was captured by air traffic control.
Stop, stop, stop. Stop, truck 1. Stop. Stop, truck 1. Stop.
There were questions about air traffic control, questions about communication with the pilots of the aircraft. But again, Garcia deferred all of that to the National Transportation Safety Board.
How is all of this affecting flights now at LaGuardia, Chris?
LaGuardia Airport is one of the busiest airports in the country, handling about 1,000 flights a day. According to Garcia, the airport will be closed at least until 2 p.m. today. Now, that's subject to change, so depending on what the investigators need, that could be later. LaGuardia is already known for delays and cancellations, and again, this will just make it that much worse.
Chris, thanks very much.
Thank you.
The CBC's Chris Reyes at LaGuardia Airport in New York. It seems U.S. President Donald Trump is backing down from his 48-hour deadline for Iran. Over the weekend, Trump threatened to obliterate Iran's energy infrastructure if it did not allow the full passage of ships through the Strait of Hormuz. Iran, in turn, threatened to hit back at power plants across the Gulf and completely shut down the vital shipping passageway. The CBC's Sasha Petrusik is in Jerusalem. Sasha, what are we hearing from Donald Trump?
Well, he had a couple of statements to make today. He said that there have been talks between the United States and Iran over the last couple of days, and he describes them as being very good and productive, and even holds out hope for the total resolution of hostilities in the Middle East. Those are his words. Now, he says that he has instructed the Department of War to put off any further military strikes, especially those strikes against power plants and energy infrastructure. Those are the ones he has threatened to go into effect as soon as perhaps tonight, and that instead those will be put off for 5 days as the talks continue. So, this is really interesting because Trump has been sending out very mixed signals, saying at times that this war could be winding down soon and threatening escalation at other times. And this statement today seems to push the needle back toward compromise, though it's not quite clear.
And there's all of this back and forth, Sasha. What is happening with oil prices because of that?
Well, the industry doesn't seem to be responding to this quite yet. Up until this statement, as things seem to be getting worse, the oil prices have been going the wrong way, as high as $113 US a barrel. And stock markets have also been going down in Asia, in Japan, Hong Kong, China, all over the place as people looked at this situation and really didn't see any kind of solution.
That is the CBC's Sasha Petrusek in Jerusalem. Thanks for this, Sasha.
My pleasure.
London police are investigating a suspected hate crime involving arson. 4 ambulances belonging to a Jewish charity were set on fire. The vehicles are associated with a volunteer Jewish ambulance service in North London. Officials say explosions from the fire blew out windows in a nearby apartment block. Dozens of people had to be evacuated from their homes, but no injuries are reported. London's Metropolitan Police say this is being investigated as an anti-Semitic hate crime. Officers are searching for 3 suspects. The Supreme Court of Canada begins hearings today into Quebec's controversial secularism law. Quebec's Bill 21 bans some public workers, such as judges and teachers, from wearing religious symbols at work. The government used the notwithstanding clause when passing the law in 2019. As Sarah Levitt tells us, the court's decision could affect charter rights across Canada.
I had to literally put my career aspirations in Quebec on a pause.
Amrit Kaur says she hoped to become a teacher in Quebec, but Bill 21 got in the way. Kaur, who is Sikh and wears a turban, is barred from teaching in the province due to its secularism law, so she moved to British Columbia. Since 2019, the law has prohibited certain public workers from wearing religious symbols while on the job, something now being challenged at the Supreme Court.
And it's different to move on the premise of a good job opportunity or you want to travel the world. But to move because of religious persecution, that just makes you feel like a second-class citizen.
While the case concentrates on Bill 21, a decision could potentially redefine the use of the notwithstanding clause. Since 1981, it's allowed provincial governments to override sections of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Karine Miller is representing the International Commission of Jurists as an intervener.
We haven't imagined at the time that there would be a situation where it could be used in so different way and so frequent ways.
In recent years, the Quebec government has used the clause several times. So too has Saskatchewan, Ontario, and Alberta.
It's the first time since the patriation of the Charter and even the adoption of provincial charters of human rights that we are having this debate of using so frequently derogation to human rights.
Hearings will take place over the next 4 days. Sarah Levitt, CBC News, Montreal.
Socialist mayors are holding on to power in major cities throughout France. Incumbent Mayor Benoit Payen celebrates his victory in Marseille, the leftist politician beating his right-wing opponent in the final round of municipal elections. Another big win for the left came in Paris. Socialist Emmanuel Grégoire beat a prominent conservative contender in a runoff vote. A worker at a Coca-Cola Canada bottling factory says he was terminated after being seriously injured on the job. The man worked there for more than half his life. The company invoked a rare legal principle most people have likely never heard of. Rosa Marcatelli from our Go Public unit has that story.
35 years, not even a handshake.
Sean Hopkins' 35-year career at Coca-Cola Bottling Limited ended just like that. 2 years ago, the 57-year-old was badly injured when a 900-kilogram sliding door malfunctioned.
Insane pain.
He says he repeatedly reported problems with the door, but nothing was done. Coca-Cola Bottling didn't answer GoPublic's questions about that. Another shock came this February. He says without warning, the company terminated him. No benefits, no severance.
That was a tough pill to swallow.
Coca-Cola Bottling says it operates independently from Coca-Cola Company, adding it works with medical experts, Workers' Compensation Alberta, and the union to find other jobs for injured employees within the company, but couldn't find anything for Hopkins. Instead, it terminated him using a rare legal principle called frustration of employment. Basically, if something unexpected makes it too hard on the company to keep someone employed, it can terminate the worker.
I find it absolutely abhorrent.
That's labor lawyer Suzanne Solsona, who says frustration is hard to prove, especially with a company of more than 6,000 employees.
I have a really hard time believing that there's no work throughout this entire organization.
Coca-Cola Bottling says it's now up to Workers' Compensation to support Hopkins. The board has him training as a one-handed typist.
Every day, I'm scared.
He's fighting the termination through his union. Rosa Marcatelli, CBC News, Calgary.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm Martina Fitzgerald. This is CBC News.
Good morning, Manitoba, and hello, Winnipeg. I'm Marcy Marcusa. It is Monday, March 23rd. Thanks for joining us here on CBC's Information Radio on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. -5, we'll update that in a moment. We'll talk about the weather. Still a little below normal, but just a touch chilly. That sun's nice though, right? Feels like springtime on your face, really warm. Well, tomorrow we're going to see if we feel really warm or really cold about the budget. The province is going to announce the latest numbers. We'll see what's in it for you as a taxpayer. We're also going to find out how businesses will fare. Those are the focus. That's the focus of our panel this half hour ahead of the budget, so stay tuned. We'll look at that. In addition, this hour on the show, Hall of Famer Milt Stegall from the CFL is going to talk about Winnipeg and why he's here today. Heather has a story in the news about what was up with Milt this weekend, but today he's here to support youth mental health services, so we'll hear more about that. Plus, search warrant documents revealing more detail about what Winnipeg police knew about an officer now in prison for corruption years before he was arrested in 2024. So we're going to walk you through those documents and we'll hear more. We're talking about disgraced former Constable Elston Bostock, so stay tuned. That's just before 8 o'clock. Right now I mentioned Heather Wells with other stories. Good morning, Heather.
Good morning. Well, Manitoba's NDP are rallying around the family of Amanda Laughlin after her death over the weekend. Laughlin was the NDP MLA for the Paw area. Her caucus colleague, Families Minister Nahanni Fontaine, says she was a devoted mother who at 49 had just become a grandmother. Amanda Laughlin also was the first First Nations woman elected as an MLA in this province. So we're going to hear more about that as well. As you mentioned, Winnipeg Blue Bomber great Milt Stegall in Winnipeg to see a machine with his name on it. Earlier this winter, Winnipeggers were asked to name pieces of snow clearing equipment, and one of the winning entries was Milt Stegall. Milt thought that was pretty cool. We'll hear from him in our next local news at 7:30.
Thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
I love that. Okay, let's find out more about the actual melting. Abby Adiemi's in with our forecast.
Yes, good morning once again, Marcy. Before talking about the melting, we just got a yellow warning for Tuduli Lake this morning. We're seeing a period of very cold and extreme wind chills continue in that part of the province. We're looking at ranges between -45 to -50 in that region at this time. So you need to take it easy. This just means frostbite in minutes on exposed skin. And this extreme cold and wind chill values we assess will moderate as you get into the morning. But as you start your day in that part of the province, you're expecting wind chills to be close to minus 50 at this time. But the bigger picture of the province is still looking at more like two extremes. We're seeing milder air in the southern part of the province, while further north locked in those dangerous wind chill and deep freeze. Winnipeg right now -5, -6, depending on where you are. We are heading for high over 3 degrees today with a chance of flurries and light rain maybe later in the day.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Corey Funk's here to cover our commute. Hello.
Hello. Yeah, got a call from Nola. She said Portage, right where it beats the perimeter. So if you're trying to head southbound on that turnoff, she said police cars are actually blocking that turnoff onto the southbound east perimeter. And it looks like they may also be issues on the southbound perimeter, east perimeter in general as well. So this is just early on, so I'm hoping to get some more details on that. We're to look into that, but just heads up, might be very slow going right where Portage meets the southbound east perimeter today, potentially blocked entirely in parts. Also, as we heard earlier, that the issue on southbound St. Mary's, right at Dunkirk there, also there's a stalled car, so keep right to get around that. If you hear anything else that's going on, you can give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number, 204-788-3093.
Well, as I mentioned, it is budget day in this province tomorrow. And ahead of that, we're checking in with some key organizations to see what they're hoping the province will put in the budget and where our tax dollars are going to be spent in the coming year. Gage Halbert is the Prairie Director with the Canadian Taxpayers Federation and in live with us in studio. Hi, Gage.
How's it going?
Good. So Chuck Davidson couldn't be with us in person, but he's on the phone. President and CEO of the Manitoba Chamber of Commerce. Hi, Chuck.
Good morning, Marcy.
All right, Gage, let's start with you. What are the big things you want to see in this budget tomorrow?
Yeah, there's a couple big things that taxpayers want to see as we go into the budget tomorrow. The first one is no more tax hikes. You know, last year we saw the government bring in an income tax hike through the return of bracket creep, as well as the second big one is we want to see the government actually make some progress on its balanced budget goal. We've seen when the government ran for office back in 2023, they were going to have a balanced budget by next year, but they've kind of boned through a lot of their deficit projections since then, so it's getting down to the wire, but taxpayers want to see the government make progress on that, hopefully get to a balanced budget so the debt doesn't keep increasing in the province. Taxpayers aren't stuck with the cost.
When you look at that through a taxpayer's lens in your organization, how much do you say the province promised this by 2027, which they did, but they had additional costs for wildfires and such? I wonder how much leeway you give them when you say you still want to see a path, or do you say, no, this is a promise you made, and despite what happened, it's your job with our money to balance this budget?
Yeah, well, taxpayers want them to definitely stick with their promise by next year for sure, because, you know, they've had those 4 years despite some setbacks. It's like when a family has their own budget, they still got to make cuts somewhere to deal with unexpected expenses, or else you get those huge debt interest payments that are a big problem in Manitoba, and they only get higher, right? $2.3 billion this latest fiscal year. It's the third largest expense of the government. So we have to get that to a point where the government is balancing that budget, starting to pay down debt. So much money isn't wasted every year on those debt interest payments.
How about you, Chuck? What are you hoping for Manitoba businesses?
Well, I think what businesses are looking for is something that helps bring back some confidence and some certainty for them. I think what we've seen over the course of this past year is that there's been almost a trifecta of issues that businesses have been dealing with. One, they've been dealing with increased pressures in terms of cost pressures. They've been dealing with workforce challenges. And I think over the course of this past year has been trade and tariffs. And so what we've been hearing from our members consistently is that what's happening is, as a result of all of that uncertainty that's been going on within the business community, is that businesses aren't making investments. They're not making investments in their companies. They're not making investments in hiring. And so what we're looking for is how can we get them back to that level of confidence and that level of certainty that they want to make those investments. And that's what we're looking for in this budget as well. And I think building on what Gabe's talking about as well, we're not looking for anything that's going to increase cost pressures on businesses. They're already maxed out in terms of where they're focused. So we need to be looking at what are some of the supports and programs that the government might be looking at, whether it's the establishment of an economic development agency that will help in terms of really drive that economic development strategy the province had talked about, as well as investments in workforce and post-secondaries that will help to address some of the workforce challenges that businesses are looking for. So that's what we're going to be looking for in this budget is how is this budget going to set us up and give businesses that confidence to start making some of those investments and creating the jobs that I think is critical to this province.
What kind of supports might you be looking for? You use the word maybe some supports or programs that could help. What might be an example of that?
Well, any kind of programs that are going to help offset some of the costs for businesses, whether it be in training, whether it be investments in post-secondaries. One of the things that we're always looking at right now is that the challenges in terms of what workforce is looking for and what their needs is not always aligned with what post-secondaries are teaching. And so sometimes it's just about in terms of, can we provide them with a little bit more flexibility in regards to their training to make sure that it's aligned better with what workforce is looking for. So that's going to be a key element of this, what we're going to be looking for in the budget.
Well, we just had a technical college close, right? Announced their closing due to they're citing the number of international students and the bottom line there. The Manitoba Institute of Trades and Technology, they're going to wind down. How much of a concern is that for the business community?
That's absolutely a huge concern, and we've been hearing that from businesses over the last while. Is that the jobs that are most in demand in this province right now are in the trades, and when a trade school closes, it's how do we make up the gap that exists from that? And I think that's something that's going to be important, as well as is what we do with that. Also, the potential changes in the impact that the changes in federal immigration are having on Manitoba businesses as well is something that we're concerned moving forward, that we're actually shrinking the size of the workforce in Manitoba when jobs are extremely in demand.
I want to ask you, Gage, Premier Wapkinu has hinted that the budget could ask the top 1% to help with education property taxes. What do you make of this policy?
Yeah, so if that means in some sense there's going to be some tax hike on wealthier Manitobans, I think it's still something that taxpayers really wouldn't stand for, because it's not actually the case that the government's saying, oh, we're just going to make this wealthy 1% pay a little bit more. We've seen in the past this government is willing to hike taxes on all Manitobans. So really what the problem is for the government on many of these levels is not that they need to hike taxes to cover these problems. They need to adequately make sure they're spending the money they're already getting from taxpayers, which has been a record amount this year, in the most efficient way possible, instead of going to them and asking for more. Because I think that's one of the most important things Chuck was talking about is trying to find those labor problems for businesses. And one of the biggest ways to do that is to reward work more by making life more affordable with lower taxes for those workers, so people want to move to Manitoba. Because right now, if you're making around the average wage as a family, around that $75,000, you're paying the highest provincial taxes in Western Canada if you live in Manitoba. So, of course, it's difficult to attract people to come here for jobs if they're going to be taxed much higher than in other parts of Western Canada.
I was going to ask you, when people make a decision to leave Manitoba, why might they do it? But you're alluding to taxes as being, in your view, part of that reason. Chuck, when businesses leave here, why do they do it?
Well, businesses leave for opportunity, and I think that's key as well, is making sure that we've got an investment community that's attractive here in Manitoba, that we've got the available workforce to be able to continue to expand and grow your businesses. I think Manitoba's got a good story to tell. We need to continue to do that, and I think that's just the reality in terms of what businesses are always looking for, is where's the best place to grow. And I think the other challenge we're looking at right now, and specifically, is how can we help some of those businesses to expand to other markets? And I think the reality is, we know that we now have an unreliable trading partner south of the border. And if you're a business that's been reliant on that U.S. trading partner and that relationship for a long time, you're having to refocus, you're having to pivot. And so looking at other potential provinces, and so we've talked about things like reducing interprovincial trade barriers, making it easier to do trade, but also looking at opportunities to look at overseas opportunities as well. So, investments in the Port of Churchill are something that we've been supportive of. So these are some of the things that businesses are going to be looking for, is what's in a budget as well that's going to help my business if it needs to make that pivot into other markets. And so any kind of supports for help in terms of export, those are things that are going to be welcomed by the business community.
Payroll tax, Chuck. What do you want to see?
Yes, well, payroll tax, we'd obviously like that to be eliminated. We've been asking for that for years.
Yeah.
I never hold my breath every time as a result of when I budget day. We like to see some tweaks on it and don't expect it to be done overnight, but it would be great to see a path to eventually be a province that no longer has a payroll tax, similar to most other Western Canadian provinces.
I want to ask you, Gage, just by some numbers here, and people can read this story on our CBC website this morning. But earlier this month, the Progressive Conservatives unveiled something that is a major plank, they say, of their upcoming, promises, because we're going to the polls next year. They say they will vow to make the first $30,000 of income earned by Manitobans exempt from provincial income tax. But by the numbers, Manitoba would forgo about $960 million if that happens. So that's like 20% of the money that we take in. So how much can we change the taxation system in this province before we just don't have enough money to spend on all the things that we need to, including, of course, our ailing healthcare system.
Yeah, there's a couple things there that I think are really important. First off, it's I think overall it's a good announcement for taxpayers. Like as we talked about before, Manitoba families are paying the highest provincial taxes in Western
why I asked
Canada.
you about it, yeah.
So getting some of that relief would help bridge that gap that makes Manitoba more competitive with the provinces around it. So I think there's two things there. So when the government does a tax cut like this in the hypothetical scenario that the PCs would get, and they also have to pair it with some spending savings as well. So you have to look at things that there might be a little bit of inefficiencies about, and the government conducts some sort of spending review to find overall savings. But then you kind of also get the double-edged sword in a good way, where when you cut these types of taxes, you make it more rewarding for people to work, more likely that's going to happen, and that can help grow the economy overall and build the budget for the future.
We also believe in the budget there's going to be an announcement. Some of these are re-announcements, but announcement of like grocery prices, some relief for families. So what are your thoughts on that, Chuck, for those who own, are in the grocery business and such?
Well, I think we're looking for some of the details in terms of exactly what this is going to look like. So, some of the concerns, and we understand that the average Manitoban is dealing with cost pressures and increased costs have been going up. Those increased costs are also going on business owners as well. Whether it's the cost of fuel, which is rising on almost a daily basis now, the cost of, hydroelectricity. So all of those cost pressures that the average Manitoban is dealing with, businesses are as well. And so, a lot of times what ends up having to happen, unfortunately, as costs go up on business, those costs are passed along, and it just simply increases for the average consumer as well. So we need to kind of look at this and make sure that it's a fair approach on this, so that, as it's, the benefits are for the average Manitoban, but businesses are also being consulted as a result of this, and what kind of impact is going to be on them.
The deficit for the current fiscal year is expected, we'll get the real number tomorrow, but to reach $1.6 billion. That's more than double $794 million that was estimated in the spring. What's one word for how you feel about that, Gage?
Well, it's kind of terrifying in some sense, right? We've seen on every budget update from this budget, and for the past couple of years, the government keeps blowing past their initial deficit estimates. And that's a problem, right? Because now we're going to be at about $25,000 per person in provincial debt in the province. And when you look at that and how much that costs, it's a pretty crazy number.
I know we're going to bug you guys again to be on the air once we hear what's in this budget. So appreciate you teeing it up with us today. Thanks, Gage.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chuck.
Thanks, Marcy.
So in studio with me, Gage Hobrick, who is with the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, and then Chuck Davidson on the line, President and CEO of the Manitoba Chamber of Commerce. The budget in Manitoba comes down tomorrow. It is 7:25 a.m., -5 in Winnipeg, -8 in Brandon, and -18 up in Thompson. It's time for morning sports. And in this morning, we have Paul McGowan. Hi there, Paul.
Hi, Marcy.
So let's start with a Jets shootout win for them last night over the Rangers, or I should say yesterday afternoon.
Yeah, Kyle Connor scores the shootout winner, and the Jets earn a massive 2 points. Points that at least nominally keep their playoff hopes alive. They sit 5 points back of Nashville, which is exactly where they found themselves 1 week ago. 5 points back of a playoff spot. Adam Lowry talked after the game about the Jets still hanging around that playoff race.
Outside of Nashville, it seems like, whenever we stub our toe, all the other teams stub their toe as well. And, we've gotten a lot of help on the out-of-town scoreboard, but at the same time, we've got to start stacking some wins. We got to take care of our own business, and to get the result bodes well. And now, try and rest up, and we've got a real tough schedule coming up, so we got to be ready for that.
Yeah, not an easy week for the Jets. Vegas at home tomorrow night, and then a home against the league-leading Colorado Avalanche.
It was so confusing yesterday. I was up early and out, and it was like the Jets game was on at 11 a.m. It was very confusing.
So odd.
Yeah. Let's stay with hockey, though. A sold-out crowd yesterday here in Winnipeg for the PWHL game.
Yeah, what a game again for their takeover tour. This one between the Charge and the Montreal Victoire. And yeah, 15,000 plus in attendance, including apparently 80 friends and family of Katie Tabin. So that's an expensive game for her. I imagine it was also an expensive night for Jocelyn Larocque, growing up in nearby St. Anne, and was asked, where playing in front of friends and family ranks as far as career highlights.
Oh man, it definitely sits pretty high. Growing up, I wasn't sure if this day would come. I mean, I looked up to Carla and Team Canada, but to have a pro women's hockey league and to be able to be a part of it, it's pretty special. And I think the city just loves hockey, and the fact that the city doesn't have a pro women's sports team at all, I think hockey would be a great first one. And I think the city would rally behind it for sure.
Good crowd yesterday and some good hockey as well. The Charge earn a 2-1 win. Rebecca Leslie scores the overtime winner, and it pulls the Charge to within 1 point of a playoff spot. They sit just back of fourth place Toronto. It's also a dogfight for first place in the league as the Montreal Victoire are finding out they are now a couple of points back, shaping up to be a must-watch final month in the PWHL.
So much fun. If people want to hear from the fans and see the fans as well, you can find our coverage from yesterday online. And let's end on curling. It was silver for Canada at the Women's World Curling Championship.
Well, last week when Canada lost to Switzerland in the round robin, we heard Carrie Anderson say, great game. I hope we play them again. And sure enough, after a dominant victory over Japan in the semifinal, it was Canada and Switzerland in yesterday's final. Anderson falls just short of her first ever gold at the event, a 7-5 final for Switzerland. Anderson talked afterward about having to settle for silver.
It's definitely tough, but at the end of the day, it's not the end of the world. I look up and see my girls standing there, and I don't want them to think that losing is the end of the world. It's still pretty special to be able to bring home a medal, and I know we wanted gold, but silver is pretty special too. And the girls told me when I gave them a hug, it's an upgrade, Mom. I said, I agree.
Carrie Anderson teaching life lessons in the middle of a world championship. She does, upgrade on her 2 bronze medals at past women's worlds. And speaking of worlds, next up on the curling calendar is the men's worlds. And once again, Canada will be repped by Manitoba. Matt Dunstone and company start those worlds on Friday in Utah.
All right. Thanks a lot, Paul.
Thanks, Marcy.
Paul McGowan with sports this morning here on CBC. Well, let's have a quick dip into your commute before the news here, because Ross called the commuter line and said right now you cannot turn onto Portage Avenue from the southbound west perimeter. Police are blocking the turnoff onto Portage. It's very backed up. And Corey may be in to update that or have something else.
Yeah, I also just got off the phone with Catherine. She also said southbound Pembina. Right as you're going over the bridge over Abinogi-Mikina, the right 2 lanes are blocked by fire trucks right now. So keep left to get around that. Stay in the median. It's probably going to be pretty slow going there, as you can imagine as well. 204-788-3093 if you see anything else going on.
Okay, thanks, Corey.
Thank you.
204-788-3093. Your news from Manitoba is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg at 7:30. It is still -5. That's where we've been all morning so far. We could get wet today. We're also going to get windy. South 30, gusting to 60 this morning. A high today of 3. 2 Air Canada pilots are dead, killed in a collision at New York's LaGuardia Airport. Dozens of others are injured. 9 are in hospital.
Stop. Stop, truck 1. Stop. Stop, truck 1. Stop.
Air traffic control trying to get a fire truck to stop just before it crossed the runway, colliding with the plane. The ground vehicle was responding to another incident when it crossed that runway. The Air Canada Jazz flight from Montreal had just landed late last night and was moving at about 40 kilometers an hour when it was struck. Here is more from air traffic control after that collision.
That wasn't good to watch.
Yeah, I know I was here. I tried to reach out to my stuff, and we were dealing with an emergency earlier, and I messed up.
No, man, you did the best you could.
Images from the scene show the aircraft tilted back on its tail. The nose appears to be sheared right off. And as I mentioned, 72 passengers and 4 crew were on that Air Canada flight. LaGuardia Airport is closed, with investigators working to determine the cause of the crash. Canada's Transport Minister Stephen McKinnon says Canada is working closely with U.S. authorities. You can hear the latest on this story as it continues to develop throughout the day right here on CBC. You can get the very latest coming up on World Report at 8. Manitoba's NDP are rallying around the family of Amanda Laughlin after her death over the weekend. Laughlin was the MLA for the Kumiask, the first First Nations woman who was elected to Manitoba's legislature. Her caucus colleague, Families Minister Nahanni Fontaine, says Amanda Laughlin was a devoted mother, and now they are offering support to her family.
Her daughter is incredibly strong and has shown just incredible levels of strength. And she only just gave birth 4 weeks ago. Amanda became a grandmother, a first-time grandmother. and she got to meet her granddaughter.
Laughlin had recently taken leave of absence due to health issues. She was 49 years old. A 15-year-old girl from Bridgewater, Nova Scotia, is set to appear in court for a bail hearing today after alleged threats to schools in Nova Scotia and here in Manitoba. Police allege the girl and a 14-year-old boy from Rivers in western Manitoba had been talking online about their desire to simultaneously attack their local schools. Interpol and the FBI warned local police about the threats, and last Tuesday, police say they searched a home in Bridgewater and found handwritten plans, imitation weapons, a roughly made imitation pipe bomb, and an assault rifle, as well as clothing with hate symbols. Well, with warmer weather ahead, a Winnipeg city councillor is asking you to help out by clearing street drains to prevent flooding. Janice Luke says additional crews are working around the clock trying to remove snow and ice from sewers, but with so many sewers around the city, she says the help of residents is welcome.
There's, I don't even know, thousands, tens of thousands of drains and catch basins in the city, and many of them are frozen from winter, and we're having our thaw. So we know that this can be a problem. If residents can go out and open up their catch basin, that would be wonderful.
Councillor Luke says you can make a request through 311 for crews to clear a specific drain. The city says it is prioritizing sewer block-ups that can cause property damage. Well, the outlook for Manitoba farmers this growing season is good. Last year, the Interlake and Parkland regions struggled with drought while soggy southern Manitoba dealt with rains. So far, 2026 looks to be fairly normal. It is music to the ears of Starbuck area farmer Charles Fosse.
To get the crop off and growing, we certainly will have adequate moisture. A lot will depend on the growing conditions and how hot it gets during June and July, and how timely any rains might be occurring during that time period.
Environment Canada's latest predictions point to average precipitation and slightly above average temperatures this summer. Well, you know you've made it when you have a snowplow named after you. Winnipeg Blue Bomber great Milt Stegall came to Winnipeg to see the machine with his name on it. Earlier this winter, Winnipeggers were asked to name pieces of snow clearing equipment for a city contest. Milt Stegall was a winning entry by Winnipegger Adam Croker.
I've had a lot of things that I've done in Winnipeg, but this is one of the coolest because I know how much these vehicles are, I guess you can't call them vehicles, but how much these are needed during the winter, and having one named after me for just one winter, whatever it may be, is pretty cool. So I'm excited about it.
Stegall says Winnipeg always holds a warm place in his heart. Well, one weekend, 2 shootouts.
Gabe Velarde creeping in, scores!
Gabriel Velarde on TSN with the game winner against the New York Rangers yesterday. On Saturday, a shootout did not end in Winnipeg's favor. Jets coach Scott Arniel.
Just like the fact that, Casey and, and Gabe, they picked the corners nicely.
Arniel says his team is working to gain ground in the hunt for a wild card playoff spot. The Jets return home to host the Vegas Golden Knights tomorrow night. You can find more news at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
Heather's mentioning Milt Stegall in the news. I talked to Milt Stegall last week, actually. We'll play that interview in a moment. It's around something else that he is doing while he's in Winnipeg and something that is coming up here today. So that's coming up in a moment. Right now, it's time for weather and traffic, starting with your regional forecast in Abby.
Yes, Marcy, still a stark contrast as we see the southern part of the province starting clear with some clouds rolling in. We'll see mild highs, while up north, we're still seeing those extreme colds holding things down. We're talking about wind chills and the valleys of -50. Towards Tudula Lake this morning, we now have a yellow warning in effect for the region, and this might spread into Churchill later. Current temperatures, we're seeing it around at -35s, and the wind chills between -43 and -50, which means frostbite in minutes. But for Winnipeg right now, we start clear. It's going to be followed by chance of flurries or some rain in the forecast. Currently around -5 at the Forks, -6 at the airport. We're going to hover around -7 most of the day, and then we'll see our highs around +3. For the southern part of the province, similar conditions, hovering around -7 at this time. The Pembina Valley region all the way to the Westman region, we're looking at -3s to -7s in that region. Rain rain showers in the forecast and flurries to come. Highs will be close to +7 in the Parkland and Interlake region, hovering between -2 and -10. Highs also gets to about +2, +3, while up north we're looking at -10 around the Par and -30 around Churchill this morning. But that warning in place for Tudula Lake. Current temperatures around -35 and wind chill -43 in Tudula Lake, and wind chill -47 around Churchill this morning.
Oh, people got to be done with it, huh?
I'm so done.
All right, thanks, Abby. Let's get into the morning commute. Corey was just off the phone. It's pretty busy right now.
Yeah, lots of things going on. Just heard from Lee, northbound Keniston at Corden, right lane blocked by a car that's kind of gone up on the curb. So keep left to get around that. As well, southbound Pembina in the right 2 lanes, right as you're kind of going on the bridge over Abinogi-Mikana, blocked by fire trucks right now. So keep left to get around that in the median lane. Things pretty backed up there, as you can imagine, says Catherine. And as well, throughout the morning, still trying to figure out exactly what's going on, but right on the southbound West Perimeter, the Portage at the turnoff, Ross said you can't actually get onto Portage from the southbound West Perimeter. Police were blocking it. Not sure exactly what was going on there, but as you can imagine, that could be causing some backups for folks as kind of people try to figure out what to do. And finally, heard from Shirley, potholes apparently really, really bad right now. St. Mary's southbound between Fermor and Abinogi. Mikana. So just lots of just big, gnarly, mean old potholes there. So look out for that. If you do see anything else going on, you can give me a call on the CBC commuter line. We'd love to get some details on any of these things you just heard about, or if you have something new, give me a call. 204-788-3093.
Well, up next on the show, we're about to talk about something important to youth in our community. Huddle Youth Services has been rolling for a long time, but they've got some special event coming up to just continue to promote the work that they do with young people to support their mental health. And my next guest is here to talk about it because he's a big champion of it. In this city, he doesn't need a last name. Milt's with us via Zoom. Milt Stiegels, who I'm talking about, of course, CFL great, who would have been pretty much a youth when he started here. I think, Milt Stiegel, were you 25 when you started playing football here, or were you younger?
Yes. No, I was 25. It was September of 1995, so I turned 25 that year. So, yes, I was a youth. I still consider myself a youth mentally. I know physically I'm not, but mentally, I'm still 25, I think.
Why do you care to get involved in this cause and in Winnipeg, given that obviously, you make your year-round home in Atlanta now?
Well, Winnipeg means so much to me. I tell people the only thing Atlanta has over Winnipeg is that my family is here. But Winnipeg, the people there, the organizations there, they do so many great things. And Huddle for Youth, they're trying to make sure that the young individuals there who are going through some problems have an opportunity to resolve those problems. It's a place where these youth 12 to 29 can go and not be judged. They won't ask them why you're here or what your problem is. Of course, they'll ask you what your problem is, but they won't ask you how you got there. But their thing is trying to resolve whatever your issue is. So this is a great cause. It really pains me when you see young individuals or any individual, but mainly young individuals go through some of the issues they go through. So Huddle for Youth is that place, that space where they can go and try to resolve the issues that they're going through. This is
specific, Huddle's the one-stop hub for youth age 12 to 29. I wonder when you think about this through the lens of a man, and maybe even the lens of an athlete, as you have been in your life. You think about all those young, maybe football players, athletes that are walking around trying to have no problems on the outside. What is the need like when you look at that? When you look at today's young men, how would you encourage them to reach out when they, and take maybe a bit of that bravado off?
Yeah, that macho narrative that they want a lot of young men to create, especially athletes, especially, football players. We're supposed to be rough and rugged. You got to take that off because we're all dealing with issues. And I truly believe this, we all have something that's wrong with us mentally. And to get those issues resolved, we have to open up. We have to ask for help. We have to reach out to others. We have to understand that we're all dealing with something. And to get those issues resolved, you have to open up your mouth. So it's okay to be strong physically, but we have to understand that mentally, we're all dealing with something. And to get those issues resolved, just got to open up your mouth because there's always someone out there who's willing to help if they know what your issues are.
It's interesting because we just did this whole interview about young men, and Jen, the younger generations actually reach out more, and young men are reaching out more in some ways. But then in other ways, there's like this divide, like those that aren't reaching out at all. This is drastically different than when you and I would have been young because, I mean, there wasn't any place to reach. If somebody reaches out to Huddle, I mean, like you said, there's a number of different ways they can connect, right?
Yeah, as you alluded to earlier, it's a one-stop shop. Whatever you're dealing with, they're willing to help you out, and it's a no-judge zone. They're not going to ask you, as I alluded to earlier, how you got there. They're going to make sure that you get in a better place. So it's great that they have this space where these young individuals who are more so to open up now than it was when we were younger. So it's a great place. It's a great space. I know there are a lot of individuals who are dealing with issues, and sometimes they're scared to open up. Sometimes they're scared because they feel they're going to be judged or people are going to look at them differently. But not opening up and allowing those issues to fester are going to cause more problems. So we're all dealing with something, and this is a place for individuals 12 to 29 throughout Manitoba where they can get that help.
What does it say that both you and Nick Dembski are going to be championing this next week at this, at the luncheon? That both of you care that much about the city to take the time to stay involved, outside of football.
I think it's very important. I think it's important because you're dealing with individuals from different generations. I think I'm old enough to be Nick's father, but we come from the same cloth. For the most part, because, we're both athletes. We've been athletes for a while. We've been put on pedestals, professional athletes. So we understand some of the things some of these young individuals are going through. And we're just trying to give back to a community that means a lot to me. And Nick, this is a community he's been in his entire life. So he understands what this community is about and what it means to him. And I understand being involved with this since 1995. So it's important for us that the youth have an opportunity to go be better individuals, because these youth is what's going to decide what the rest of this world looks like. So we got to make sure that they're in a great place when they get to make those great decisions.
So when you think about your own life, because you're just talking about, through an athlete lens being put in a pedestal, I mean, a lot of people look at that and think, oh, well, it must be the best time of life. But you have young people who are in the spotlight all of a sudden, and there's a lot of pressure, right, too, that comes with that. Who do you credit with keeping yourself and maybe your mental health grounded through your life?
Well, it was 100% my parents. My parents made me understand early on. And early on, I was a pretty good athlete and I was starting to get some accolades, but they made me realize that it's not about, what you do. It's about the type of person you are. Yes, it's nice to be important, but it's more important to be nice. So regardless of where you are, how much money you have, where you live, it's the type of person you are and how you treat those individuals. How you treat those individuals who can do nothing for you, who benefit you none, really determines what type of person you are. So I learned that from my parents early on, and it just allowed me to be a great individual, shaped me into the person I am now, allowing me to make sure that I understand that, yes, it's okay to receive sometimes, but it's more important to give and give back to those who sometimes and most of the time won't be able to do anything for you. So I credit to everything I am today to my parents.
I want a shirt that says that. It's nice to be important, but it's important to be nice. That is just great. Thank you very much for the conversation today and for teeing up what's going to be happening with Huddle.
Thank you very much for having me. You guys take care.
Milt Stiegel. I spoke with him Friday, and then he got here actually over the weekend. As you're hearing in the news, they named a snowplow after him, Milt Stiegel. But today he's going to be busy at a luncheon that is happening in support of Huddle Youth Services. The former bomber will also join current bomber Nick Dembski, as I alluded to. This is all happening at the Manitoba Museum today for in support of Huddle Youth Services, their event. You can learn more about Huddle at huddlemanitoba.ca. That is the full words, huddlemanitoba.ca.
We carry a world of information in our pockets because we want to know. Breaking news that shapes our world. Staying on top of stories around the globe. And connected close to home. It's news you can trust. Delivered when you want, and where you want on Canada's News app. Now with CBC Radio 1, local and live. Download the CBC News app for free.
It's 7:47 a.m. and we continue to follow whatever information we can get after that Air Canada jet collided with a fire truck on the runway at New York's LaGuardia Airport. We do know, as you've been hearing, that 2 pilots are dead this morning. Dozens of passengers have been injured on that Air Canada plane. Now, Air Canada Express flight AC 8646 took off from Montreal. John Cox is a former airline pilot, accident investigator with the Airline Pilots Association, and he spoke with CBC News Network morning host David Common a little bit earlier this morning. David asked him about his reaction to seeing the entire cockpit sheared away by the collision.
It says that there was high energy impact, and unfortunately that the pilots that were in the flight deck have been reported to be deceased. The entire event, from the time that that airplane taxied out and also when that fire truck initialized its first movement, the NTSB is going to look at every moment of that. And so the collision itself, they're going to look at in great depth, but they're also going to look at what led up to it.
What is clear is the firefighting trucks at the airport are called out to a different emergency. And to get to that emergency, they have to cross the runway that the Air Canada plane is going to use. They call out, ask for that permission. They get it from the ground controller. But seconds later, you hear that ground controller saying, truck 1, stop, 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 stop. He says it 10 times. What does that tell you?
The fact that there is a question about the clearances that both the Air Canada RJ had, as well as the fire truck, that's going to be something that they look very carefully at. They're going to interview the controller. They're going to interview the fire truck driver and that crew as well as soon as they're able. And so they're going to understand, but it appears right now that there was both vehicles had the proper clearance from air traffic control that later the ground controller rescinded for the fire truck. So that's going to be a central area that the investigators look at.
And to be clear, there should not be a scenario where 2 things can be on the same runway at once.
That's correct, but understand that that's 2 different controllers. The what is known as the local controller would be talking to the aircraft. The ground controller would be talking to the fire truck. So there has to be coordination between those 2 individuals.
There's no fire here, and admittedly, the aircraft's gas tanks are in the wings. The engines themselves are on this aircraft, mounted on the tail. What does it tell you that you can have such a violent collision but no fire?
The fact that the wings were not ruptured or opened up, there wasn't a fuel spill that we know of so far. There was not an ignition source. So it helped certainly with the evacuation, but this was a high energy impact. So the airplane was moving at a pretty good speed when the impact occurred. So people are going to be dazed. That's going to slow the evacuation down. But very fortunately, there was no fire.
John Cox, a former airline pilot, accident investigator with the Airline Pilots Association in St. Petersburg, Florida this morning, where he spoke with David Common, where I guess he was there, David, of course, in Toronto on CBC Newsnet. That was earlier this morning. Air Canada now has a support number set up for friends and family of flight Air Canada 8646. That number, 1-800-961-7099. We'll have more at the top of the clock on World Report. Also, coming up after 8 o'clock, MAID, medical assistance in dying, has made headlines in the news. Since we learned Manitobans are being denied MAID at a rate that's 5 times greater than the national average. In addition, Alberta proposing its own tougher regulations when people can access MAID. Today, a feature story after 8 with a Manitoba woman who will die with MAID a month from today. We'll hear more why she wants to share. Next on the program, search warrants documents are giving us more insight into what Winnipeg police knew about an officer now serving time in prison for corruption and what they knew before he was arrested in 2024. Elston Bostock was sentenced to 7 years in January after admitting to a long list of crimes committed over the last 8 years of his career. The search warrant documents that were obtained by CBC, though, reveal more details about, as I mentioned, what else police knew about Bostock and how long ago they knew it. Caitlin Gowerluck is here to tell us more about these documents. Good morning.
Good morning.
So what are they and where do they come from?
So police file these kinds of documents to try to get a judge to grant them a warrant during an investigation. The documents are called ITOs, which stands for Information to Obtain, and they're supposed to be basically the factual foundation to support any warrant being granted. The documents are unproven, but they involve affidavits, which means police have sworn the facts they lay out in them are true, and they can be really helpful to learn what a police investigation has uncovered so far. So in this investigation you just mentioned, we got hundreds of pages of these documents where police are asking for warrants for things like searching Elston Bostock's home, recording data from his cell phone, and tracking his vehicle. And to convince a judge to grant those, they laid out tips they'd gotten about Bostock breaking the law over a period of 15 years. So until now, there's actually been a publication ban on these documents and anything in them, essentially since the beginning of Bostock's court proceedings. And that means we haven't been able to report on anything from the more than 600 pages of those documents we've gotten until now. And that's after we successfully fought that ban in court.
So what do the documents tell us then, Caitlin, that we didn't know?
So one of the biggest things was just how far back these allegations about Bostock went and specifically what they involved. So we did know from his sentencing that there were internal reports about him going back to 2009, but we didn't know what those reports included exactly until now. So the earliest tip in those search warrant documents came from a source who told police about what they called a dirty cop in Winnipeg helping a drug trafficker. That source said the officer's name was Elston, and it's a name police said only one officer had. But without any supporting evidence at the time, anything beyond that, the documents say that investigation in 2009 just ended. But information about Bostock continued to come in even after that first tip. Sometimes it was through other police sources, and in one case actually it came through an unrelated wiretap investigation. Police heard information over years about an officer selling and using drugs, about an officer sharing police information and associating with criminals. And in one case, a few years after that first tip, a source told police about two drug traffickers who talked about having a cop in their pocket. One of them said it was a great business move to party with a cop because he could provide protection from other dealers and also from the police. The source said in 2013 that trafficker also told them that if they ever did get busted by the police, they'd have proof Bostock was dirty because he, quote, snorts with them.
It's interesting. You're talking about things that are 13 and 17 years ago, right? Which you're alluding to. Did police ever do anything with these tips?
So there was a point where in 2018, police had continued to get more tips about Bostock through confidential sources, and that included one who talked about an officer named Elston who was friends with a man importing GHB, also known as the date rape drug, to Winnipeg. The source said that officer would also do computer checks to let the trafficker know who police were looking at, and said that that officer had also sold drugs himself. So at that point, the documents say police then went as far as asking a judge for permission to record data from Bostock's cell phone. But that judge rejected their application, saying she wasn't satisfied there were grounds for what police asked for. And then as a result, again, that investigation ended as well, and Bostock continued to serve on the force until he was arrested in 2024.
When Caitlin, police finally did get warrants to investigate Bostock's, then remind us what they did find.
So, yeah, just to back up a bit, some of those warrants we know were to help police get information as they investigated, so by looking at his phone or tracking his vehicle, but there were others, like a search warrant for his home, that resulted in a list of items being seized. So that included, they found drugs, they found several iPhones, they also found prohibited weapons like brass knuckles and nunchucks. And police also seized two items that the documents say seem to have been taken from deaths that police responded to. And that was someone's journal and a box of Ozempic with someone else's name on it, both found in his home.
Okay, so what is next for this case then?
So as we heard already, Bostock has already pleaded guilty and been sentenced. He's now serving time in prison. But there still are three other officers who were accused alongside him, whose cases are still before the courts. One of those officers has also pleaded guilty and is now waiting to be sentenced, but the other 2 are expected to go to trial later this year.
All right. Thank you very much for walking us through this.
You're welcome.
You can read about this as well on our cbc.ca/Manitoba website. Caitlin Garlick in studio, reporter with CBC Manitoba. I'm Marcy Marcusa. You are with CBC. This is Information Radio, your morning show on Monday, March 23rd. Let's dip into the weather, and then Corey's going to tell us about traffic. It's clear, -5, winds are calm, a high of 3 degrees today. We have a 60% chance of flurries or rain showers. Nice blue sky out there to start this morning. It's a little chilly, but this afternoon we are expecting, as I mentioned, flurries or rain, and the winds will be 20 gusting to 40 or 60, so it'll pick up with the winds as well. Coming up after 8 o'clock on the show, we have quite a feature for you. Her life plan is to die a month from today on her birthday. Why a Manitoba woman has made the decision to access medical assistance in dying, and why she hopes that sharing her story will help others if they too are considering going out on their own terms, as she puts it. So stay tuned. That is coming up here after 8. Of course, MAID's been in the news a lot lately with Alberta looking to change their regulations around it. And in Manitoba, we have learned and reported that Manitobans are denied MAID access at 5 times the national average. Corey's here now with a quick look at traffic.
Reported earlier, southbound West Perimeter, there was police blocking the turnoff there. I got a call updating that that's now clear. Shouldn't be any issues southbound West Perimeter going on to Portage. However, still a couple issues. Southbound Pembina, right 2 lanes blocked as you're crossing the bridge over Abenoji-Mikana. As well, northbound Keniston, heard from Lee that right at Corden, there's a car up on the curb in the right lane, so keep left to get around that. Foggy around Oak Bank as well.
All right, thanks, Corey.
Thank you.
Heather.
Good morning. Well, clean your drains. That is the request from a city councillor. With warmer weather ahead, Janice Luke's asking you to help out by clearing street drains to prevent flooding. And Manitoba farmers are encouraged by early forecasts for spring and summer precipitation. We'll hear those stories coming up in our next local news at 8:30.
All right. Thanks, Heather Wells.
Thank you.
From our news department today. We are coming up now to 1 minute before 8 o'clock on your Monday morning, and we'll get the latest on World Report about the plane crash in New York.
On cue. 30 years ago, Thompson Highway wrote a musical that was never professionally produced, but a student named Patricia Cano performed it at university. 25 years later, they're still making music together, and they'll tell you how that show, Rose, is finally getting its first professional production.
Changed my life because it brought Thompson into it. It means everything.
Q with Tom Power. This morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland. And on CBC Listen, or wherever you get your podcasts. The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current with Matt Galloway.
It is impossible to avoid every hockey, basketball, baseball broadcast littered with betting ads. What does that obsession with gambling and sports mean for the integrity of sport itself and for our experience as fans? Coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm Martina Fitzgerald.
Sadly, the 2 pilots are confirmed deceased, and notifications are being made by Air Canada's care team at this time.
2 Air Canada pilots are dead, killed in a collision at New York's LaGuardia Airport. Dozens of other people are injured. 9 remain in hospital.
Stop. Stop, truck 1. Stop. Stop, truck 1. Stop.
That is air traffic control trying to get a fire truck to stop just before it collided with the plane. The ground vehicle was responding to another incident when it crossed the runway. The Air Canada Jazz flight from Montreal had just landed late last night and was moving at about 40 kilometers an hour when they collided. Here's more from air traffic control.
That wasn't good to watch.
Yeah, I know I was here. I tried to reach out to my stuff, and we were dealing with an emergency earlier, and I messed up.
No, man, you did the best you could.
Images from the scene show the aircraft tilted back on its tail. The nose appears to be sheared off. Jack Cabot was on the flight.
We went down for a regular landing. We came in pretty hard. We immediately hit something, and it was just chaos from there. Everybody was hunkered down, and everybody was screaming. We didn't have any directions because the pilot's cabin had been kind of destroyed, so somebody said, let's get the emergency exit and get the door in. Let's all jump out.
72 passengers and 4 crew members were on board the Air Canada flight. LaGuardia Airport is closed, with investigators working to determine the cause of the collision. This incident is heightening concerns about air travel safety in the U.S. and the pressure being put on air traffic controllers. The CBC's Willie Lowry joins me from Washington. Willie, air traffic controllers are not affected by the current U.S. government shutdown, but they were affected by the shutdown this past October. Remind us what happened.
Last fall's government shutdown really exposed a stress point in the transportation industry here in the U.S. The country is short more than 3,000 air traffic controllers and has struggled to hire and train new ones as many age out. And just last month, the U.S. Transportation Department Office of Inspector General opened a probe into what it calls the high failure rates among air traffic controller trainees. Many of those who are on the job are working mandatory overtime and often 6 days a week. The FAA has quite onerous requirements. First-time applicants must be under 31 years of age and are required to go to training at the Federal Aviation Administration's Academy in Oklahoma City, and then required to do another 2 to 3 years of on-the-job training. According to the FAA, only 10% of applicants meet all the requirements necessary. The mandatory age of retirement is 56, though because of the shortage, that number has been pushed to 61 in some cases. The FAA has been trying to boost the number of controllers, but it's a long process.
The CBC's Willie Lowry in Washington. Thank you, Willie.
My pleasure.
It seems U.S. President Donald Trump is backing down from his 48-hour deadline for Iran. Over the weekend, Trump threatened to obliterate Iran's energy infrastructure if it did not allow the full passage of ships through the Strait of Hormuz. Iran, in turn, threatened to hit back at power plants across the Gulf and completely shut down the vital shipping passageway. The CBC's Sasha Petrusik is in Jerusalem. Sasha, what are we hearing this morning from Donald Trump?
Well, he had a couple of statements to make today. He said that there have been talks between the United States and Iran over the last couple of days, and he describes them as being very good and productive, and even holds out hope for the total resolution of hostilities in the Middle East. Those are his words. Now, he says that he has instructed the Department of War to put off any further military strikes, especially those strikes against power plants and energy infrastructure. Those are the ones he has threatened to go into effect as soon as perhaps tonight, and that instead those will be put off for 5 days as the talks continue. So, this is really interesting because Trump has been sending out very mixed signals, saying at times that this war could be winding down soon and threatening escalation at other times. And this statement today seems to push the needle back toward compromise, though it's not quite clear.
And there's all of this back and forth, Sasha. What is happening with oil prices because of that?
Well, the industry doesn't seem to be responding to this quite yet. Up until this statement, as things seem to be getting worse, and the oil prices have been going the wrong way, as high as $113 US a barrel. And stock markets have also been going down in Asia, in Japan, Hong Kong, China, all over the place as people looked at this situation and really didn't see any kind of solution.
That is the CBC's Sasha Petrusik in Jerusalem. Thanks for this, Sasha.
My pleasure.
The Supreme Court of Canada is beginning 4 days of hearings on Quebec's secularism law. The province has invoked the notwithstanding clause to protect Bill 21. That is the 2019 law banning some public sector employees from wearing religious symbols at work. Quebec argues it is necessary to maintain the province's secular neutrality. Critics argue it violates freedom of religion and equality rights. The court's decision is expected to have significant charter implications for all of Canada. Closing arguments begin today in the murder trial of 2 Ontario women accused of killing a boy in their care. The 12-year-old died in their Burlington home in 2022. As Justin Chandler reports, the case is raising concerns about the child protection system.
Becky Hamber and Brandy Cooney have pleaded not guilty to first-degree murder in the older boy's death and to charges including assault related to his brother, both of whom they were trying to adopt.
It's heart-wrenching.
Cheyenne Ratnam is the president of Ontario Children's Advancement Coalition and grew up in the child welfare system herself. For her, the trial evokes a history of Indigenous kids dying in the system.
There's this underlying question of
When will it be enough for a system to actually transform?
Cooney and Hamber have testified they lacked support to manage what they describe as the boys' significant health and behavioral issues. They say they reluctantly turned to unconventional methods, including restraining the boys using zip ties, wetsuits, and hockey helmets, as well as locking them in their rooms for hours at a time. They testified children's aid workers were aware. Though not on trial themselves, the Ottawa and Halton Children's Aid Societies have both come under scrutiny. Erwin Ellman of Defence for Children International Canada says the agencies made bad decisions and should be transparent about changes.
The child protection system was at the center of it, but so were professionals like doctors, teachers, counselors. We either reaching to the Children's Aid saying, do something, it's not going right, or not speaking up at all.
Both agencies say they conducted reviews and made changes. Neither said what those changes were. Hamber and Cooney's trial resumes this morning. If convicted of murder, the pair could face life in prison. Justin Chandler, CBC News, Hamilton.
Canada is still considering a social media ban for children and young teens. Parents and educators say more needs to be done to protect young people from online harm, and many are looking to Australia. 3 months ago, it banned anyone under age 16 from accessing social media. The CBC's Deanna Sumanak-Johnson looked into how that's working out.
It really didn't do anything. The social media ban was a bit of a non-event for our family.
Kate Gotham is a Sydney mom of 3 boys who says what kids consume online should be the parents' responsibility, not the government's.
We instead have policed our kids, parented our kids online always.
Her 2 eldest boys had no trouble tricking the age verification on social media platforms and staying online. While some Aussies hold that view, University of Sydney researcher Timothy Koski says it doesn't mean the ban is failing.
If you look at the way the policy was crafted, it's not saying, I want to make sure that that teen is off social media. It's saying, I want to make sure that the social media platforms are held accountable for when teens are able to get on it.
He says whether the ban is really working or not will be seen in longer term, looking at metrics like teen eating disorder rates or concentration in the classroom. And watching that Aussie experiment, Canadians who say we need some sort of restrictions here, including Vancouver mom and founder of Parent Network Unplugged Canada, Jenny Perez.
So we have waited enough. This shouldn't be debatable anymore.
When asked, Prime Minister Mark Carney said that a possible age restriction on social media use in Canada merits a parliamentary debate. But internationally, the momentum is growing. Indonesia's under-16 restrictions are kicking in this week, and France's are just waiting for Senate approval. Deanna Sumanak-Johnson, CBC News, Toronto.
That is the latest news from World Report. I'm Martina Fitzgerald. This is CBC News.
Good Monday morning, everyone. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and on YouTube. Thanks so much for joining us. Blue sky now, but it's going to cloud over later. We're expecting that we could see a little bit of rain, in fact, this afternoon. Well, we have a rare opportunity this half hour to hear from someone who is accessing MAID. A month from today, in fact, we have a feature interview with her. And it's top of mind in this country. Medical assistance in dying or MAID is making headlines since we learned Manitobans are being denied MAID at a rate that's 5 times greater than the national average. And then over in Alberta, they are proposing their tougher restrictions on when people can access MAID. So a story with a woman who says she's made the decision to get MAID, why she hopes that sharing her story will help others if they too want to know more about it, or they're considering, as she puts it, going out on their own terms. Stay tuned. Right now, let's update a lot of the news that's developing around Manitoba. A couple headlines now. Full cast at 8:30. Heather Wells is in. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, a Winnipegger took matters into his own hands to clear a flood in Bridgewater Forest over the weekend. After calling 311, he was told it could be more than a week before the city could resolve the issue. He calls that unacceptable. We'll hear about what happened there. And Manitoba's NDP are rallying around the family of Amanda Lathlin after her death over the weekend. Lathlin was the first First Nations MLA elected in this province. Her caucus colleague, Families Minister Nahani Fontaine, says she was a devoted mother who at 49 had just become a grandma. We'll hear her story in our next local news coming up at 8:30.
All right, thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
To the weather now briefly with Abby.
Yeah, the south really bracing for some showers this afternoon and maybe some flurries in the mix. While up north, we're looking at extreme wind chills of minus 50s as we travel towards the Tuduli Lake and Churchill region. Right now, Winnipeg, it is minus 5.
All right, let's get to a busy traffic morning. Corey.
Yeah, lots going on. Northbound, southbound, Raleigh and Monroe. There's a multi-vehicle collision and emergency crews blocking those lanes on Raleigh Street, just north of that intersection. So that's going both ways. So you want to use alternative routes to get around that. I was talking earlier about northbound Kenniston at Corden. There's a collision there that has now been cleared. So should hopefully be smooth sailing on Kenniston. May still be an issue southbound Pembina, the right two lanes. This is about an hour ago. May not. About the right two lanes just going over Abinogi-Meekina, southbound Pembina, were blocked by fire trucks. May still be an issue, so heads up there if it is still going southbound Pembina this morning. Also heard about very foggy conditions around Oakbank from a couple people who called the commuter line. So look out for that if you're on the highways this morning. And finally, pretty bad potholes. St. Mary's southbound between Formore and Abinogi-Meekina, says Shirley. If you do see anything else, though, you can give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number 204-788-3093.
Well, as I mentioned, medical assistance in dying is making headlines. Manitobans being denied MAID at a rate that's 5 times greater than the national average. We've heard different perspectives on that. Some say that might be a good thing. Others are saying it is a serious concern, especially for one Steinbach family whose mother was doctor said that she could access MAID and then she was denied. In Alberta, they're proposing tough restrictions on when people can access MAID. Next, a feature interview with a Manitoba woman who will die with MAID a month from today. She says making that decision for herself was a relief. 78-year-old Winnipegger Bobby Knowles has vascular dementia. She says she sleeps most of her days away. She can't drive. She's losing words. Sometimes she has tremors and falls. Bobby spent her life working in trauma therapy and counseling at places like Marymount in Winnipeg and throughout the north. She's got a shock of white hair. She's got a sly, witty smile. She's got a very tell-it-like-it-is attitude, as you'll hear. I sat down with her in her Southdale home alongside her partner of 30 years, Kathy Emlaw, and their 2 little dogs, who you'll see if you're watching on YouTube.
Hi.
How are you?
Okie doke.
And what is significant about April 23rd?
Well, there's 2 things. It's my birthday, and the other thing is that that's my date that I've chosen to accept the services of MAID.
Why did you choose that date? What does that mean for you?
Well, I always have a sort of a weird streak of humor, and I think it's an appropriate time to have a positive ring to it. Like, I think it's good vision of coming and going.
So for you, as I mentioned, I said when you made the decision to have MAID, it was a relief. Is that right?
Yeah. You know, what I've experienced out there is very interesting, because when people get into a place that they feel that they can't stand what's happening for them, they often commit suicide. And then it seems that we live in a culture that if that happens, family members, of course, they're sad, but I think they also feel shame.
And for you, then, you were going through what you were going through with your disease.
Right.
And feeling you wanted control over what your end would be.
Yeah, and I honestly wouldn't be able to commit suicide. I don't know if I'm a chicken or I just your death shouldn't be a shame. Your reasons shouldn't be shameful to you and your family.
What a What a powerful way to word that. When you made your decision to have MAID, was there a moment for you in your journey with vascular dementia, or when did you actually decide that?
I had a date, and it was not that. It was.
It wasn't April initially, right?
No, it was in January.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I realized that we had a great grandson coming around that time, and so I didn't want to screw up all the works, and so I pushed it forward.
I think Kathy's going to help you with something here.
You did first talk about MAID when you noticed your symptoms starting to get worse,
right?
Which was about 4 years ago.
Right.
Got it.
And the other thing too, actually, going further back, I was doing contract work, and I was up in Shabatawa, and I had a report to make, and I called Kathy because I couldn't remember what I was supposed to put.
So 4 years ago,
yeah,
you really made the decision already, started thinking about MAID?
Yeah, it wasn't, I didn't worry about it anymore. It was my life plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your life plan was to know your death.
Right.
You saw the Robert Munch interview on CBC with Adrian Arsenault. He has also chosen medical assistance in dying.
Yeah.
He hasn't set his date yet. What do you remember about seeing that interview? What stays with you?
Well, I know that was the jolt that sort of made me think, oh, I should do that too, because, the more people do it, the more it's going to get out there, and the more it can be put into sort of a normal stream, so people don't freak out about it all. Yeah. And it's interesting because everywhere we went, we had to go to all the family members and tell our Kathy's family and my family and everything. And one day we came home, I said, well, I said, the wrecking crew is home. So we hit every place. We left tears everywhere.
What was that like for you to leave, to tell people and to have them react?
Well, I'll give you an example. I contacted my youngest child to come here, and she did, and she was the first one that I told. And she, right now, is engaged in visiting my oldest daughter, who had early onset Alzheimer when she was in her 40s. Yeah, and she's in a home care place. And so when I told my youngest, to be honest with you, I sort of expected that she would be sad. And she burst out crying and said to me, oh, I'm so glad you made that decision.
So part of this maybe is, maybe she shares what I know that you've shared with me, is you knew you personally didn't want to go down the path of living in a medical facility.
No, because Kathy put it really well, is that every time you go there, you got a redo of your grief. Every time you go and visit her. I just went and visited her a couple of days ago, and I'm still rattling inside from it.
So you've made this decision for yourself?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's all of the above.
Do you know what your death will be like, Bobby?
Yeah.
Where you'll be and who will be there?
I'll be here. Kathy and I will be here, and our dogs, because I believe that the dogs will know, and I don't want them looking out the window for me all the time.
What was the process like? Did they visit with you a number of times over the years? Twice. Okay.
But there were not the same people. There was one team, and then there was another team. So I guess they get different perspectives.
Do you have moments where you're looking forward to this, or is it sort of looming somewhere for you?
No, I'm not looking forward to it.
How do you frame it?
I just go along day by day.
Like there's no dread, is there fear?
No. No.
Is there still relief like there was when you made your decision?
Oh yeah, I'm glad that's coming.
Yeah.
I struggle because I know that I'll leave Kathy by herself, and I feel bad about that, but I explained to her that I've seen quite a few cases with couples where where one person has dementia. I've seen all the patterns. I've seen how it interacts between a couple, and that the nature of the relationship and the love that I have for her, I don't want to tarnish that, and I don't want to make that memory get all wrecked up.
Yeah. Do you have moments of doubt ever about this? About
Doubt?
May?
No.
No.
I can't doubt what I am. I'm not me.
Tell me more about what you mean by that. You're not you.
Well, I'm a very independent person. I had a lot of skill in a lot of different areas that fed my self-image, and then the other thing too, to be honest with you, I think what happens sometimes when people have dementia, they get treated like they're stupid.
And you're going to make this decision as long as you can make it.
Yeah. They already came and checked a couple of days ago, so I guess they're going to keep on checking. But I think that's probably a good thing for them, because they don't want to get everything all ready and then there's nobody at the party.
How do you want to be remembered?
I already know how I'm going to be remembered. People have come and told me.
Oh, of course you would have had those moments, actually.
Yeah, and there you go again. See, like the opportunity. We just went out for supper last night, and a friend gave me a card and all the things that she valued in me, and it's so like it's not all bad, It's a pretty good trip.
That's Winnipegger Bobby Knowles. She will die with medical assistance in dying a month from today. She has vascular dementia. Her partner, Kathy, wished for me to add that while she would have never seen Bobby as a burden and would have cared for her in any way, she also understands the love involved in respecting and supporting Bobby's wishes. It is 8:25 a.m. on 89.3 FM, 990 a.m. on the app and YouTube. Thanks for joining us this morning. Monday morning, March 23rd, -5. The top news right now that we've been covering in Canada is a flight from Montreal, an Air Canada jet colliding with a fire truck on the runway at New York's LaGuardia Airport. 2 pilots are dead this morning, dozens of passengers injured. We've compiled next on the show some of the key moments and excerpts of audio from air traffic control. This is just before and after the collision. What you're going to hear is the controller approving the fire truck as is required to cross the runway, then realizing something's wrong, urgently ordering it to stop. The crash happens. The controller calls the pilots of the Air Canada flight that help is on the way. And at that point, the pilots could have also already been killed. Now, this sequence of clips is not in real time. The editing, though, has been done for purposes of clarity.
Truck 1 and Company, cross 4 Delta.
Truck 1 and Company crossing 4 at Delta.
Frontier 4195 to stop there, please. Stop, Truck 1, stop. Stop, Truck 1, stop. Stop, Truck 1, stop. Delta 2603, go around, runway heading 2000. Jet 646. Jet 646, I see you collide with a vehicle here, just hold position. I know you can't move. The vehicles are responding to you now.
Is the runway closed?
Delta 2603, go around, runway heading 2000.
Heading 2000, go around, Delta 2603.
Truck through 2, runway 4 is closed, correct?
Yep. Go on to runway 4 now. Proceed on runway 4. You have access. Frontier 4195. I got the word that we're going to be closed for a little while. If you want to prepare to return to the ramp, let me know.
Yeah, we got stuff in progress for that, man. That wasn't good to watch.
Yeah, I know. I was here. I tried to reach out to my stuff, and we were dealing with an emergency earlier, and I messed up.
No, man, you did the best you could.
Haunting to listen to, of course. Those are some of the key audio excerpts from New York's LaGuardia Airport. Air traffic control. An Air Canada flight collided with a fire truck, killing 2 pilots, injuring dozens of passengers. Now, this flight originated from Montreal, and so Air Canada has a support number for friends and family aboard flight AC 8646. 8646. So the number, if you're needing to inquire, is 1-800-961-7099. We will have more coming up in the news at 8:30 with Heather Wells. You can also read, of course, at cbc.ca and see some of the images of what we can report thus far. It is in Winnipeg, Monday morning. Winds are calm, -5, heading for a high of 3 degrees, and some rain expected this afternoon. Brandon, -8. You're expecting some sunshine to start, then rain also this afternoon, probable, and a high of 3. And in Thompson, it's -18, going to be a colder day. You're expecting 2 to 4 centimeters of snow with increasing cloud, and your high's -15 degrees. Marjorie Dalhouse has popped in now. We're going to find out what's coming up on the Radio Noon call-in. Hi, Marge.
Hi there, Marcy. Well, we're talking about, I don't know if you heard, but last week Ontario announced that they are passing a bill where you cannot sell event tickets, so sporting events, concerts, for above their original value. So that's the reselling of tickets. We know that there's a lot of third-party sites out there. There's some scalpers. We have a lot of events here in Manitoba. Of course, we've got sporting events, concerts. So should Manitoba follow suit? We're asking you that today. Maybe you want to share your experiences with us on Radio Noon of when you bought a ticket to an event and what was your experience like? Did you end up paying well above what the original price was? So that's what we're talking about coming up on Radio Noon today after 12:30. So join the conversation.
All right. Thanks very much, Marge.
Thanks, Marcy.
Between 12:30 and 1 o'clock, the call-in on Radio Noon. Corey Funk has popped in with a quick look at traffic before the news here.
Yeah, I got a call from Janet. Northbound Maine at Riverbend, there's a multi-vehicle collision that seemed to have impacted a light standard. So those lights flashing red, she says. There's a car kind of up on the median there. So keep right, as you can imagine, northbound Maine at Riverbend there. Very, very backed up. May still be some issues also southbound Pembina crossing Abinoujimika. We heard about fire trucks there earlier as well, so keep left to get around that.
Thanks, Corey.
No problem.
I also want to thank our news department this morning, Joni Nicolo, as well as Heather Wells there. Caitlin Gowerluck, a reporter, in on the program this morning with an item. Also, producer Robin Summerfield with some work on today's show. Jason Empsom, who shot that feature interview that we had this half hour. Big thanks to you, Jason. Shot and edited that piece of work. And in addition, thanks to Corey Funk, to Darren Marash, to Abby Adeyemi, our Studio 15 crew. So big thanks to everyone and our producers, Leif Larson and Ellie Gonzalez. I'm Marcy Marcuso. Your CBC News from Manitoba is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 8:30, it is -5. We're clear now, but clouds are going to move in, possibly bringing showers or flurries. The wind is going to pick up with a high today of 3. 2 pilots are dead after an Air Canada flight collided last night with an emergency vehicle at LaGuardia Airport in New York. Audio from air traffic control captures the moment.
Stop, truck 1. Stop. Stop, truck 1. Stop.
The Bombardier aircraft was traveling from Montreal's Trudeau Airport to New York. The plane, carrying 72 passengers and 4 crew members, 41 were taken to hospital. All but 9 have been released. Many of those 9 have serious injuries. Video from the scene shows severe damage to the front of the aircraft. Timothy Henriksen was on another plane that was taxiing by.
I could see a plane propped up. It looked like it was almost like lifting off, but it was stationary, and we got a really good view of the plane missing the whole front nose.
Flights in and out of LaGuardia are suspended until this afternoon to allow investigators to carry out their work. You can stay in step with this story throughout the day right here on CBC. You can also find out more at cbcnews.ca. A Winnipegger took matters into his own hands to clear a flood in Bridgewater Forest over the weekend. Gorachish Singh spent days dealing with a growing puddle in his back lane last week. The main sewer behind his Bridgewater home had clogged. After failing to clear it, he called 311 and was put on a waiting list. The city told him it could be more than a week before they could resolve the issue. Singh says that timeline is unacceptable.
The smell getting into their houses soon, and the water will come to the house soon. So rather than waiting till 30th March, let's do it and let's get rid of it. Let's get back to our business. And that's what we did.
Singh cleared the drain himself on Saturday. The city says crews are working to unclog sewers, but they are focused on catch basins where there is a risk of flooding to properties. Manitoba's NDP are rallying around the family of Amanda Lathlin after her death over the weekend. Lathlin was the MLA for the Paw area, the first First Nations woman elected to Manitoba's legislature. Her caucus colleague, Families Minister Nahani Fontaine, says Lathlin was a devoted mother, and now they are offering support to her family.
Her daughter is incredibly strong and has shown just incredible levels of strength. And she only just gave birth 4 weeks ago. Amanda became a grandmother, a first-time grandmother, and she got to meet her granddaughter.
And she had recently taken a leave of absence due to health issues. Amanda Lathlin was 49 years old. Manitoba farmers are encouraged by early forecasts for spring and summer precipitation. Steady snowfall combined with cold temperatures means soils should be nice and wet by the time seeding comes. Trevor Hodwin, a climate specialist at Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada, says things are looking up for regions of Manitoba hit hard in the past.
In Manitoba, we've seen some really good moisture through the areas that were dry. The Parkland region and the Interlake region of Manitoba have seen some really good winter snowfall.
Last summer, severe drought saw more than 10 rural municipalities in Manitoba declare states of agricultural disaster. Well, you know you've made it when you have a snowplow named after you. Winnipeg Blue Bomber great Milt Stegall came to Winnipeg yesterday to see the machine with his name on it. Earlier this winter, Winnipeggers were asked to name pieces of snow clearing equipment for a city contest. Milt Stegall was the winning entry by Winnipegger Adam Craker. Stegall stood in front of that piece of equipment yesterday on, of course, Milt Stegall Drive.
I've had a lot of things that I've done in Winnipeg, but this is one of the coolest because I know how much these vehicles are, I guess you can't call them vehicles, but how much these are needed during the winter, and having one named after me for just one winter, whatever it may be, is pretty cool. So I'm excited about it.
Pretty cool, and he says Winnipeg always holds a warm place in his heart. And a sellout crowd at Canada Life Centre welcoming Professional Women's Hockey League to Winnipeg for the first time last night. The game winner on TSN, Kim Ezer, took in that game with her children and says the date had been circled on her calendar for a long time. She says young girls would love to grow up with a professional team in Winnipeg.
They would love to be able to have an option. If they didn't want to go to a Jets game, they can watch, their favorite players playing in the Professional Women's League here.
The PWHL did not make an announcement about expanding to Winnipeg while it was here, but the league has signaled it plans to add at least 2 to 4 teams next season. You can find more news updated throughout the day. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
So I'm a full-on cheeseball, as you know, so I can't get enough of the Milt Stegall.
I know, it's great.
I know. I looked up the other names just to remind myself. Winnie the Plow, Schloss Morrissey, Hellebucket, and of course, Greg. Which is great.
Everyone loves Greg.
Totally. All right. Thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
Corey.
Kevin Shovel's Snow Off also got me
it's
real
also
good too.
Yeah.
Northbound Maine at Riverbend, there's a multi-vehicle collision that's not down to light standard. So lights are flashing red, car up on the median, keep a right to get around that. Probably very slow going northbound Maine.
Abby.
Yeah, the southern region starting clear, but we're going to see some cloudy conditions move in with temperatures hovering around -7 in most of the regions down south for the morning before we see those highs in the values of 3s and even +5s. But up north, we're still dealing with those dangerous colds around the Tuduli Lake region where it feels like -51 this morning.
Woohoo! All right, thanks, Abby.
You're welcome.
Take care, everyone. Thank you so much for listening this Monday morning to Information Radio. We'll be back again tomorrow with another edition of the morning show on CBC. The Currents coming up next, and then local programming between noon and 1 and 3 and 6 for Up to Speed. Have a great rest of your Monday.